Hey guys, this is Ruben Langdon, aka Dante from Devil May Cry, aka Ken Masters from Street Fighter, and also Chris Redfield from the Resident Evil series. And you are listening to the Kasanova Podcast, the number one podcast in Hawaii. Jackpot.
Where your information can be fished out, as well as your computer, phone, tablet, or what have you. A lot of people don't realize that video game consoles can be subject to being compromised as well. So there's a device that's out, and it's one that I strongly believe in. It's one that we here at the Kasanova Podcast utilize, and that is the Trend Micro Home Network Security. And it is a simple device that you plug into your router, and it basically safeguards your devices. It doesn't matter what from, because if it's on your network, it's going to be protected. And that includes your tablets, your phones, your computers, and also your gaming console. It looks at the traffic that's coming in and out to make sure that there's nothing that's compromising it. And anything can compromise your devices, from apps to websites. Some sites have malware, spyware, and ability for it to be compromised and backdoored for hackers to get. Same thing with apps. Same thing that can happen with game consoles. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you're protecting yourself. And also for parents, one of the things that I think you guys would absolutely love with the Trend Micro Home Network Security is the fact that you have a notification anytime your kids are on the internet. It will notify you if they're on sites that they're not supposed to be on, or sites that have any type of compromising capability. You can also, if you want to fine tune it and safeguard your kids' access to the internet, you can limit what sites they go to, as well as how often the devices that they have, how often they can go on the internet. It's really a great device that I highly recommend to anyone out there looking to safeguard their devices. It's great for individuals, small businesses, big businesses, and most importantly of all, it's good for families. You can safeguard your information, make sure you're not being compromised, you're safe on the internet, your kids are safe, and that's what's really important. So with that being said, make sure you go and safeguard your devices and your information. And for me and for the Kasanova Podcast, we stand fully behind Trend Micro Home Network Security. Get yours today, link below, and get yourself the best device for home network security, which is also in the name. All right, and welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's number one podcast, the number one podcast in the Pacific, the Kasanova Podcast. I'm your host, Mekel Kasanova. I've got the honor and privilege of having the one, the only, the iconic Karak of ACG. How's it going, man?
Good. I'm not 100% sure I'll live up to any of that, but good. And I want to thank you for coming on mine as well a while ago. It was very cool.
Dude, it was awesome being on. I was so nervous going on your show. I'm like, oh.
Shouldn't have been. You probably figured that out. You were like, oh, wow, this is low rent as hell. You probably came, right? You came on, you're like, let's jack this up. Everything's going to be nice, lighting everywhere. And then you see us and you're like, oh, maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't have accepted.
Well, it's insane because it's like when I went on your show, like, dude, your streams are just so super active, and it's really what inspired me to start doing live stream podcasts, because that interaction is so raw, it's so in the moment, and it's really good for engagement with your audience. And so I was like, man, I love it, because most other podcasts that I watch on YouTube or even on Twitch, a lot of them are just pre-recorded, but when you're doing it live, there's something about being live and, with your guests and with the audience that's just, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's very cool. There's definitely a different skill set. Speaking of live, so that people know what I'm doing, I'm switching off this background removal for NVIDIA. I'm going to switch it to blur because I cannot stand seeing the flicker until I fix it. And there you can see, I was telling him prior to the podcast that everything for ACG is done in a little bedroom, and now you can see just how little it is.
So for those of you, for the two people in the room that are not familiar with you, you mind giving the people a brief background on what it is that you do?
Yeah, sure. Video game reviews, mostly a lot of maybe technical talk, I guess you would say, or game design talk. But most of it's, I think, I try to aim it as a little bit less technical than a Digital Foundry, but still trying to explain some things. I certainly try to do some layman discussions at times so that people understand some of the technical bits. But mostly it's just game reviews based on, at least for me, this is important. And I know some people don't agree, but based on the value that they're currently being charged, which is why $70 is going to change some stuff. Boom. When these first party companies change their pricing, it's going to be weird.
It really is. And it's definitely something we're going to dive into that, because like the gaming landscape is definitely changing with this next generation coming out. You know, the pricing of gaming. And if you think about it, like if you go back to the what is it, PS2 and the original Xbox era, gaming was $49.99. That was like the peak price, and then it jumped $10, and now we're about to go up to, so was it 79 is going to be the base starting point?
69 will be the base 69? For like Sony. They announced it on their channel, and then what was it? Was it EA or Activision? One of those two announced it, and then a couple others. Now we'll see some that will definitely not make that change. Where I mean, I have a couple people that I know at different companies, and I've asked them, been like, "Is this?" And no, they won't. But it is going to be a weird situation, because in the past we've had a price delta where you could look at it and go, okay, $60 is a AAA, $50 to $40 is a a B game, maybe AA kind of thing, and then you could work your way down. And I think logically it made a lot of sense to people. Now we're getting something where it's going to be like set 60 to 80 is AAA, and it's always been that way, or they've tried to have it that way by giving you extras. But now they've just basically said, we're doing, who knows if you get those extras, but it's still going to cost you that much. So it's going to be definitely it's for sure changed. That is for sure true.
Definitely. And dude, like, let's talk about it. So you're full-time content creator, podcaster, streamer. Like, it's insane, like all the things that you've been doing over the years. I've been a fan for years of your work.
Thank you.
It's been an inspiration for me to get into content creation. But the one myth that people seem to think is content creation is easy. We need to dispel that. I don't understand where that bullshit comes from, because I have so many people that I personally know. They'll be like, oh, that's easy. Anyone can get in front of the camera. I'm like, yes, anyone can get in front of the camera. But can you be successful at it? Do you have a way to stand out from everyone else? And one of the things that I absolutely love about your work and your style is just that you aren't, you're not the sponsored content creator. Like, I have a tendency to piss people off, because I keep it $1.50. But a lot of other people that do sponsored content, you can tell it's sponsored when they'll pick something and be like, oh, this is the best product ever, and you need this, and this is why you need to buy this, and blah blah. And it's so, I don't know if there's like
transparent.
There's no transparency with it, and you can tell that they're selling you bullshit. Whereas like with you just cut it down the middle of the road. It's like, this is what it is. This is what I think of it. This is the ups. This is the down. Which, like, that's another thing that's heavily influenced my review style, because I feel like that transparency helps. And a lot of times when you're looking at stuff like IGN and GameSpot and all that other stuff, half the times you don't even know if these people really like it, or if they're just reading off of a script, or you got someone who wrote the script and then someone who's on camera, or someone who's doing the review.
Or somebody who told them that they couldn't score the game a certain score, which is what you hear. Yeah, dude, it's so one of the reasons why I do cost-based is because prior to working here, I actually did call center work. I set up call centers around the world at different companies.
Dude, me too.
Oh, did you? We'll have to talk. Yes. Wait a minute. I think we did mention this in my podcast for a second, and we never visited. But so that's what I did. And one of the centers dealt with commercialism and dealt with basically talking to people and finding out what they feel they got for their worth and stuff like that. And it was scientifically proven. Like, the jury's not out on this. It was scientifically proven that people who get something for an altered cost from somebody else. All
Mhm.
things being equal, we'll feel differently about it. And it can even go the opposite way. Some people think I'm always like, oh, I want to do this because I don't want to, the company, maybe giving it a better rating. But what can actually happen too, and I'm sure this has happened with anybody out there, you get your hopes up and you buy a game and it doesn't meet your hopes and you're worse on it. Right.
Mhm.
So like if you got it for free, maybe you'd be like, I got it for free. It's not, sunk cost fallacy. But for me, I looked at the science and I was like, there is no jury out. And I've had PR people try to tell me behind the scenes, they're like, there's science proving that that's not true. And it's like, no, there's nothing proving that's not true. It is for sure true.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's why I started looking at price. Cause I was like, I'm going to tell you right now, man, I don't know about you. Never in the history of ever have I sat with a group of friends and they said, Karak, what'd you think about Dragon's Dogma? And I said, it's a 5.8. That would make no sense in English.
None.
There is never a time in the history of ever I've said that to my friends. But what I have said is, knowing financials, said you might want to go see if you can rent it at Blockbuster or from GameFly, because GameFly still does rentals, and Blue Box may have stopped. But I would say that I would never, ever, and I never gave grade scores. Like, what? I'm not 12. That doesn't even make sense. Like, nobody talks at anything I have. I have a PS4 controller right here. If somebody said, what do you think of it? I would say, I would give them the positives and negatives, and they would ask me the general next question. Do you think it's worth 60? Not your version of 60, not my version, but just do you think as a generic, is it worth 60 if that's the price? And that to me it just spoke to me. And I was watching a lot of reviews prior to getting into it. And IGN was one of the ones that I actually watched. And I like Ryan McCafferty. Dude, he's the Xbox guy. He rocks. But I was watching IGN, man. And it dawned on me one day, because I've also worked as a speechwriter. And I was looking at what they were saying. And I was like, oh, this guy's not reviewing the game. And one of my friends was like, what do you mean? That's a review. And I'm like, no, go listen to it again. What he's doing is he's giving you an itemized list of what he's done. That's it. There's no actual anything else. It's an itemized list of what he's done. Oh, it's 8 hours. There's these, there's this, there's that. And there really isn't a lot of, I felt that this worked with this, which is why I cover sound, music, and voice too. Because we're in an era where people buy OSTs all the time. And nobody was covering sound, music, and voice, which blew me away. So somebody'd be like, hey, man, I got my brand new Final Fantasy OST. And I'll be all, oh, how did you even know to like that? How did you even know it was like, and sometimes it'd be like, well, I just bought it myself. And other times there's a couple websites that, would review it off the side, but no big gamers were doing it. And I do have a history in music, so it was easier to talk about those things. But yeah, dude, it's changed even since I came in. So.
And that's just, and it's one of the things. It's like, with my friends and with my family and whatnot, I'm the same way when it comes to games, because I've never, like, the whole point system, like, how does one game get an 8.5 or 8.75? Like, what is the spectrum that we're working with?
Right.
And I go back to, like, when I was a kid back in the 90s, I look at, GamePro magazine. It was always, what's the fun factor? What's the game sound? What's this? And it's like, modern reviewers now, like, it just doesn't feel like they do that. Like, you got the major outlets, and then even with other content creators and YouTubers, it feels like they focus so heavily on just a number or metric based system. And I've never understood that. I've never, like, when I'm listening to a lot of these guys, there's no energy in their voice when they're talking about the game. And I'm like, okay, so is the game fun? What are the positives? Like, are you just have a script, you're just reading off of it, and it's frustrating to me. So
I think also, especially when we look at these now, and you look at the way game reviews are done, and just because it's fun for me doesn't mean it'll be fun for you. So my job is to say why I found it fun. Like, and one of the positives I've always got is, for the most part, I've had people be like, man, I don't like your fucking tone of voice. I don't like you're this. I don't like that. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, because there's people in real life like that I know that I don't like. So I'm okay with that kind of stuff. I'm just like, dude, I walk by a guy in the street, I'm like, yeah, I don't like you. Something about this. I probably wouldn't like you. And maybe you would, but people at least get to see me more, and they make a decision. They're like, I don't like his stuff. And I'm like, that's exactly what you should be doing. That's exactly what you should be doing. And I think some people try to throw it as a negative, but it's like, that's not a negative. You are quite literally taking advantage of all of the things that are open to you and all of the avenues for information that are open to you. And that does mean closing them on particular people. And my job is to make sure that whoever I can speak to, and dude, I am, I do fairly good on big games, but I don't do well on small games. That's just the honest truth. I'll cover a game. Well, it to me, it's not big. So like I'll get a million views on a big game, and I'll get, I got 30,000 on Falconeer. And I know this is not saying that other people wouldn't be happy with 30,000. What I'm saying is there's a delta there that you can see. You can look at that and go, there's a difference. And yet, as long as I describe what I find fun, even if I'm talking to a smaller group, I'm pretty okay with it. Like, it's one of those things where you're just like, you know what, this is sort of what I like. And then people over time, they get to know you, and then they hear surprise. I'm also passionate about games. I think they're fucking awesome. And so like, there's cynicism, which we can certainly talk about, that can drag you down. But one of the things, to me at least, is that for every Anthem, there's a Falconeer, or there's a Kingsbird, which is, I'm naming off a couple indies, but and then there's other AAAs I like too, like look at Ghost of Tsushima. So there's enough out there that as long as I'm telling people what I find fun, trying to hit some good ones, trying to hit some bad ones, I probably won't ever lose passion. I hear people talk about getting burned out, and I'm like, I could see getting burned out time-wise, but this job is pretty busy. But, well, as you know, I don't think people realize what a call center is like. I don't even think they even, and I was an operations manager and the call center manager. So they paid me 2 wages, which was great, but it was 80-hour work weeks for about 7 years. And so coming into YouTube, I don't think I'll get burned out from covering games. Like, it's a lot, but it's not that kind of a lot. I mean, I'm sure you remember, but your head hits the pillow, right? And you're like, maybe you had some sexy time with your wife, whatever, you're late, and you're like, this is great. And you get into that deep zone sleep where your brain, it's like a meteorite, and you've been struck into the bed, and then the phone rings, and they're like, we've got a blah, blah, blah. And you're all, and your brain is like, I don't even, who the fuck called? Who are you? Or like, I didn't order pizza, and they're like, no, man, I need you to come into the office, or we've got an outage somewhere. That doesn't, at least with YouTube, for the most part, that doesn't happen. Which to me, that's like the biggest change, is not being on call all the time. Because I was on call all the time. It was rough.
Dude, when I explain to people like my old job, because like I oversaw all the call centers out here in Hawaii for like 8 hospitals and about 60 clinics. So and we're talking about each island too. So I oversaw all those. I was on call 24/7. I had 80-hour work weeks, and people have no idea. Like when I explained it to them, like the stress of dealing with that, dealing with you had to have a meeting to have a meeting to have a meeting.
Right. Yeah. Meetings for meeting.
Like in infrastructure building, site surveying, like people have no idea what goes into like call centers. And when I'm explaining to people, they're like, "Oh, that's abnormal. How can you be, how can you work, those kind of hours?" I'm like, I'm the primary, I'm the backup, I'm the on-call, I'm the entire team.
Yeah. And you'll always get those people, especially who aren't accustomed to call center stuff in particular, who are like, well, you need to delegate. I remember a lot of my family, not the job. The job was usually fine because I would get this shit done ASAP. But sometimes with like a family, they'd be like, can you delegate to do something this weekend? And I would always try to do family events, but I'm not a huge family event person anyway. So it wasn't like I missed a lot of those. But when you're constantly hearing that from people, like I would feel bad for a bit, and then I'd be like, you know what? I sort of enjoy it. Like I don't know how to, man, I've always liked being the go-to person when something hits the fan. The job prior to setting up call centers was in an emergency center. And so, deaths and fires and stuff like that. And your brain gets wired. Yeah. It does. Like I can tell my brain got wired for that. It got wired for wanting like that, huge adrenal bump. And sometimes you wouldn't get a dump until and I don't mean a physical dump, I mean an adrenal dump. You don't get an adrenal dump for a few hours, if not the entire day. And man, I enjoyed it. So there's positives and negatives. I do miss my time. I don't miss the politics or dealing with somebody who doesn't know they're like yelling at a client support center person, and you're just like, seriously, dude? Did you hear the other end of this call? Like, at some point, what are we doing here? Like, if we're just going to hire people that, everybody can just yell at, that's one thing. But if you want to hire professionals, that's a completely different thing. And dealing with those sucked. But I do miss it sometimes. I miss, I miss that, just the huge adrenaline rush when something occurred at work. And that doesn't happen with YouTube. Huh?
You miss the pay?
Dude. Yeah. People don't even realize, like, I'm not Jake Paul, obviously. Money's not even a billionth of a billionth. And since I don't do any sponsors, even the podcast, by the way, we just lost our podcast sponsors. And
what?
Yeah, all of them dropped. We don't know why. I probably said something, like, because I'm always dropping F-bombs. I probably said something or whatever. But just 2 weeks ago, we lost those too. And that was the little bit of income I was getting out of when it wasn't, YouTube stuff. And, dude, yeah, the amount I was getting, it was commensurate with the stress. I never once was like, I'm not worth this. Never. Yeah. But looking at YouTube and looking at, it was... Yeah, they pay, depending on the job, obviously, And I spent years as a call center in the trenches, too. I didn't just become management, man. It was 9 years of working in the trenches, too. Pay can be good depending on who you're working for and what you're doing.
Yeah, I have those moments where it's like, I look back and I'm like, God, I miss that paycheck. But then, like you said, I'm the same as you. Like, when it comes to the politics in the office, I couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
It's like I oversee my call center, and plus having to build out the telephony architecture was a pain in the ass. Site surveying, having to because our IT team was just stupidly small. Having to also manage user accesses and stuff like that. Like, it really got to a point for me that I'm the same as you, like that adrenaline rush, I kind of got addicted to it.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. Like, for me, I was doing that for years. Like, I've got the same amount, 9 years as well in it. And so stepping out of that and coming to this, I can deal with it. Like, when I tell people I'm usually reviewing 10, 13 games a week, people are like, what? That's insane. Yeah. I'm like, no, but that's work for me. The only thing is just the amount of work you're putting into it and what you're getting back from it.
Yeah.
And it's like that's the part for me that's just where I miss that paycheck. And then there are times, especially I shared with you, I'll share it here. My wife and I we're having a baby next month. Not next month. Next year.
Spreading the seed, taking over the world one baby at a time.
Right?
That's awesome.
It's like, and thinking about the baby on the way,
insurance being paid by a company, right?
Right.
That's a big, even just going in there, if there's a free snack and you don't have to buy breakfast, it's like there's $7 that I don't have to worry about. Can that, especially when you're going to have kids, it's going to be different.
Yeah, and it's and just getting her insurance. We got her insurance because she got laid off from her job. She was a store manager for orthopedic shoe store. She got laid off at the beginning of COVID. Back in, I want to say, end of March, beginning of April, she got laid off, and she's been laid off ever since. And so having to scrounge money together to pay for her insurance, I'm actually going without insurance. Right. Just to cover her. And people don't understand, all that adds up.
Yeah. And you're working, they're taking, companies take their fair bit of skin too. But there's a couple things that are really nice about working for companies, just depending on exactly how your place is set up. Dude, it's so weird. I've gone for so long without health insurance. It's crazy. I just recently got it. And because I'm healthy, I wasn't when I was younger, but it's I had, a 20-year span where it's just nothing really, even though I was doing martial arts and stuff, I didn't break any bones during that time, whatever. And and if I had, I would have had to pay for them. And I went without insurance, which I know is stupid. Like, you don't want to go without insurance, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, and I, not to get into a nation versus nation thing. That's just one thing about us is that, for the most part, we have to pay for our insurances.
Yeah.
And that's the positive. But I got to tell you, bro, I worked at HP, and they had Tuesdays and Thursdays snacks. And I got to tell you, I might have missed the snacks more than the fucking insurance, man. Rolling in. So I'd roll in. I'm a early starter. So I'd wake up at 3:30. I always wake up at 3:30 a.m. That's pretty much my thing. And I work out, and then I go to work. So run, do whatever. So I would go in, pretty hungry anyway, because there would always be like, whether it's, doing martial arts or it's running or whatever, I'm always trying to do stuff. And I would go in, and they'd have like old-fashioned donuts, which I got to admit, there's got to be some chemical in old-fashioned donuts other than the sugar that it just speaks to me. Old-fashioned donuts are the shit. And they would just put them out at the break stations, man. And you would just go with your friends. Work didn't even start till 7. I'd be like an hour early, and I would just scoop those sons of bitches up, man. And I'd just sit them down at the table and just mow into those. Loved those things. That's the one thing I miss. Snacks at businesses.
Yeah, and it's dude, we have a lot in common. I
had forgotten. We had talked about the call center thing, but I'm almost 100% sure it was at the very end of the podcast where we like started talking about like old and really discuss, because sometimes you don't know also what to ask a visitor.
Yeah.
You talk about it and you're like, sometimes you don't know exactly how much even they know or their name is out there. Like your name's out there, mine's out there, but there's other people where their names aren't even out there. And I've had to, be all, what do we call you? Oh, call me, just the Chugger 99 or whatever. And I'm like, all right, I don't know what that means, but okay, that's the one we'll use. But you're never quite sure exactly what to ask. So usually with my guests, I'm always like tentative. I know you, so it's no big deal. But it's like if it was somebody brand new, you're just sort of like, what can I ask? And you have to touch around it and figure out exactly what somebody's open, to discussing and stuff.
Yeah,
but that's also fun. You get to meet people.
Have you had those situations like when you've got a guest on your show where it's like you're struggling to get them to talk? Like,
nope.
Really? Oh God, I need to learn from you.
Maybe I didn't tell you this, dude. I've been so lucky. Either they, and I'm a talkaholic, so I'm very good socially at figuring out what somebody wants to talk about, even if it's not work and it's not like games. So if I sniff that out, like I have this sort of thing in my back of my head, sort of counting the words per minute. And I'm like, all right, we're getting a little low. They don't want to regurgitate their stuff. Also, I think I do watch out who I invite. There'll be a PR person or two who I'm like, well, I don't want them coming on the show to PR. Like I won't. We have to talk about other stuff, and I even have a little disclaimer. It's like you will be asked your opinions. You have to give them, or I don't want you on. There's been many who've been like, yeah, I'm probably not going to be able to do that. But no, I haven't had it. We've had bad audio though, dude. We had a guy who told me he lied to me, man. He did. I love him, by the way, but he had to have lied because he's all, I got great audio. Got no issues with audio. I'm like, okay, good. So I get my 4 people together doing the international podcast. We all jump in. He is, no lie, on a notepad. These are not they're not the laptops. They're the ones without the CD drives. They were only popular for about 5 years. They ran on like Atom processors. He's got that. He's using the voice mic, and he's, no lie, at a bar in Scotland during a soccer game or football game for you guys. So they're in the background going like about every 30 seconds. It'd be like, bleh, you just hear this screaming, and he'd walk around and lose signal. And that one we still posted, but I was pretty upset because I was just like, dude, you told me you had good audio. Like, you don't need to come on. And he's like, yeah, I just decided to come down here and watch the football game while I talk to you guys. And I was like, yeah. So that's probably my worst when it comes to like the delivery and how it works. Other than Austin Wintory, by the way, who I love, composer, has done tons of games. That dude's audio for the longest time was so shit. And he'd come on my podcast because I'm friends with him. And I'd be like, Austin, come on the podcast, dude. Let's talk about, what was it, Abzu. You're a swimming dude, like a scuba diver. I'm like, dude, come on here. So he's like, yeah, man, I'll come on. And he gets on, and I don't know why, but he decided to do it from his his fucking, Generation 1 iPhone or whatever. And he's walking around the hall, and it's shaking, and it's like cutting out. And he's like, oh, I got to tell you something important. And he'd freeze. and then he'd be all at the end, and we were like, we have no clue what he was saying. Austin, I love you, man. And he's fixed his audio. He's on a podcast now, and he's fixed it. But it was a disaster. It was, and we had him on, I'm pretty sure all 3 times. Was just hilariously bad. But you have to deal with it, right?
Yeah, you do. Like I haven't been interviewing like voice actors as much lately, but I've had a few voice actors like I'll put it out there, like Kira Buckland from Nier Automata. So I had her on.
Yeah.
And there was so much hype. Like my audience was like super hyped for her to be on. They had all these questions. And no lie, and Kira, no disrespect to you, the worst guest I've ever had. And it's
why is
worse. It's worse because like one was late, came on, she's super late. She didn't want to talk. First thing she told me before we started recording was, can we make sure that we do this within like 10, we can do like 10 to 15 minute podcast. So I was like, okay, but I have questions that I want to ask you. She said, yeah, I have other engagements. I'm like, well, we can reschedule. And
oh, okay.
And then when she came on, she just didn't want to talk at all. Like,
that's
it was
too bad.
Yeah, and it's like it's she's not the only one. There's been a couple other prominent voice actors that have been that way too. It's not as common, but it's been a thing where I've run into that with voice actors, and I'm like, all right, so you present yourself one way, but this is how you are when you're not in.
Well, hey, dude, a piece of advice for you on somebody to get on, who's a voice actor who is probably, to me at least, one of the most impressive voice actors I've seen in a game is Anthony Ingruber. He played the Joker in the Telltale games, the Telltale Batman games. Younger guy, looks just like a younger Harrison Ford. It is so creepy. And he's played Harrison Ford in the movies. He was a young Harrison Ford in one of Harrison Ford's movies. He's got pictures with him, all that stuff. And he's been in a couple games, but he's always on the outside. Like he's always trying, but doesn't always get picked up for some of these games. He's in Lego games. He was the Joker, I believe. In one of the Lego games. He's done, but his name's Anthony Ingruber, and he's awesome because he'll come on and do impressions. And he has an impression so good, Mark Hamill was teasing him on Twitter, going like, I thought that was me, and I just forgot what was being said. Like, that is, he can spot on. And what was cool about him coming on, what was that? John Doe, I think, is that character in. So he came on to Batman Telltale. It's a pretty cool interview. He came on, and they said, we don't want you to be Joker right now. You're pre-Joker. And he said, well, let me do my own thing. And he did his own thing. And I'm telling you right now, I personally think it's the best version. It's my favorite Joker. Yeah. It's so good. It is such a weird take on, and not weird as in pushes you away, but a unique take. Yeah, you should have him on, man. I'm sure he would love to come on. He's always trying to get into the game as much as he can.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Yeah, I'm down to do that because, yeah, I mean, I've had fun. Like the crazy thing, like with this podcast, like I've been doing it for 5 years. I've had the opportunity to, this platform as a whole has been able for me to like meet and befriend a lot of people that I've been a fan of from years, from yourself to various voice actors, people in the industry, and more. And it's like, it's been a crazy journey. Like that, there's, like I said, there's some situations like the one with Kira Buckland where I'm like, okay. But there's always like great opportunities. Like when I had, what's his name? David Hayter on. God, that dude you need to have him on, dude. He's awesome.
I probably should. I steer clear of the bigger voice actors.
Why?
Because I've always felt there's a bit of a clique there that I'm not comfortable with. And David. I do want to make sure that's clear. I actually don't. I just mentioned him because I think he's a great voice actor, and he's hugely popular. So I want to make sure people, in no way, shape, or form, and I wouldn't say it wasn't him if it was. But I think there's a band of voice actors that it's not too difficult to sort of track, seem to be a sort of a clique. And it's like if you hire one, you're sort of hiring all of them. And knowing some side voice actors like you yourself, even though that interview didn't work out, not necessarily the biggest voice actress in the world, like you hear some stories, you know, of like, especially because they're all, you know, they do have a guild / you know, union kind of thing. And that can be a little rough on who can get what jobs and stuff like that. So I've just steered clear of them. Not in a hateful way, but I also, dude, I'm pretty rough. I mean, like I think my go-to for a while was, oh, look, you know, it's like, I don't even want to say the actor's name, but I'd be like, it's so-and-so playing so-and-so is the same character he's in every other game. You know, like when I was covering voice, and you know, you can guess who that is. But the thing is I usually don't think it's the voice actors. Like, knowing voice production and how that's done, it's usually the voice director who's the problem. Yeah. And it's usually not the voice actor. But if you're the one at the front, I don't usually say the voice producer's the cause of this. I'm like, dude, this is bad. Like Anthem, or not Anthem, I'm sorry, but Avengers had some rough voices, ignoring that they weren't the main people you expect. There's a couple in there that you're just like, like, rub some dirt on it, man. You know, right? You got to get some grubbiness, something to capture people's ears. And if you don't, you know, you'll be Troy Baker.
Sure.
I like Troy Baker. He's awesome in some stuff, but in some stuff, remember when they used to say Jack Nicholson is phoning it in, or Harrison Ford, especially Bruce Willis. I should remove those two and say Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is the one that everybody's like, dude, that guy's phoning it in, right? He ain't even acting now. Dude, Bruce Willis will show up to almost any movie just in his fucking whitey-tighty shirt from Die Hard and just be like, you guys CGI it out. This is my favorite shirt. And he's just him in it. There's no acting. And there were times with, like, you know, maybe people are nervous about telling these guys what to say. But I got to deal with the Hitman voice actor. His name escapes me right now for some reason. Damn it.
I remember that, yeah.
But yeah, I did an interview with him, and he was amazing. And remember, he's only really been one thing, like Hitman. Yeah. But it was cool to, I would be like, how do you rub dirt on it? If you're in there and you're supposed to be Hitman, how do you do it? And he's like, well, they don't allow for a lot of this, but I can do this and that. And it was cool to see somebody work within the structure of that character trying to do something versus a lot of people who have no structure and still don't appear to try at all. And you're just like, how did we not find Joe Blow on the street who could do a better job, you know, voicing this character? I don't know. I don't want to diss on people too much because that's not my job. And again, I think it's the audio director. It's almost never the voice actor.
Yeah. No, but it's very true about the whole click. So it's really interesting how there is a click when it comes to voice actors. Like, of course, you know, there is the union and whatnot that they have, but I mean, there's a click in I guess you can say like a positive and negative way. Like, I've been on, especially this year, a couple months ago, I actually had a voice actor, I'm gonna dance carefully around this because I don't want to stir it up again. But I had one try to cancel me. And it's crazy because I thought we were cool. I thought we were friends. And because I went on someone else's show, and apparently they didn't like that person. And they also didn't like the fact that last year I interviewed the voice actor for Broly. You know, the one, Vic Mignogna, all that drama. So because I interviewed him, they're like, oh, you're siding with, I stand with Vic, you know.
Oh, gotcha.
And I'm over here like, I'm a interviewer.
Yeah.
I have no say in the game. So because I did that, I became public enemy number one. A lot of voice actors. And when you talk about the click, it's a very real thing. It's very real. And I've seen how bad that can get, how toxic that can get. And so what I did is, because for the longest my show was just interviewing voice actors. So I just shifted gears away from it. Yeah, and some of the more prominent ones that I've interviewed, like, you know, from Ruben Langdon, Ruben Langdon, Dante, for those who are watching, that's one of my best friends, which is crazy. I grew up a fan.
That's very cool. Yeah.
But he's one of my best friends. He's got a key to my house. Comes out here every summer. Well, not this year. He was actually out here and then the quarantine happened. But he's one of the ones he just does a job and he gets away from it.
Yeah, right.
You know.
Well, it's sort of like the call center stuff we were talking about with the politics.
Yeah.
You know, and it does happen. And, you know, I'm talking out my ass because it's like you never know also, you know, what happens in, you know, your output can be adjusted for money reasons as well. Somebody may say, oh, you're not going to get 10 takes. You know, you could be the George Lucas of directors where the dude's like, all he cares about is the actors are alive.
Yeah.
Like George Lucas is one of those directors who just doesn't give a shit how it sounds. He wants to show something. And he would do that a lot of times. He'd just be like, oh, it's good enough. And people would be like, no, that's a first take. Nah, that's good enough. So that's possible too. But what I'm hoping for is the lack of travel causes, you know, a sort of blossoms, not a positive from it, because that always sucks to say that. But I would like to see some of the side actors, some of the side gig people get a couple more jobs, because even discussing it with a couple, you know, folks, I'm like, dude, because I deal with a couple people on PR, a couple people who are doing a Kickstarter, and they'll be like, yeah, what should I do, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, if you can, you know, go for a middle voice actor who you know is going to be good, but don't spend your wad on, you know, on this or that, because I have consulted on a couple, and it, you know, usually they have done it. It's actually worked out really well for one, because they were known for that. But you also wonder, you know, how much time and money is spent, and then everybody throws that kind of stuff away. Like with Avengers, I bet you nobody other than me and, you know, 10 of the people who watched me really cared if their voices were off. But I was like, dude, the voices, you know, they were good and bad at times, but it's just like, I know that I'm speaking to a much smaller demographic. So, and that's just like you. If you're doing voice actor interviews, unless you get a voice actor, right, who is a superstar, they're not very big anyway. You know, like right now it's just, you know, there's only a couple who are massive. Yeah. What we need, dude, what we need to do is we need to start like interviewing influencers like Kardashians and shit. Be like, dude, we'll call it something dirty, like the Kasanova and Karak double team podcast or whatever. We'll be like Khloe Kardashian or whatever her name is. Come on, man, let's talk. Let's talk about your personal life. If you guys see me doing that, by the way, feel free to look me up on Google, find where I live, and come and punch me in the face if you see me like interviewing an influencer like that.
Oh, okay. So we got to talk about it. What is your thoughts on this whole thing of influencers? How do you feel about that?
Oh, I don't even believe that's a real thing. If you create, you're an influencer. If you influence things, it's because you created stuff. So like when you get a journalist or whatever who's like, I'm a nope. You do journalistic activities, that's for sure. And in those particular avenues, when you're doing journalistic stuff, you're a journalist. But if you're like on a podcast, that podcast is an influencing podcast, blah, blah, blah. If you have followers, you're influencing. But you can also be a reviewer. And what bothers me is when there's like 3 embargoes, and they'll be like, this is embargo for streamers. Doesn't bother me as bad, because a lot of times those will be later and they'll be like, you can stream one, you know, but you still see that difference. But currently and recently I saw a couple that were mind blowing, and I just refused the game because they were like, oh, you know, influencers are here, reviewers are here. And I'm like, listen, I am a reviewer. In fact, IGN or these companies you consider like journalistic reviewers do far more videos than I ever do. And many of them only have 1 or 2 people. I don't even mean just IGN. I'm talking about others. They have maybe 1 or 2 people. They're still doing maybe a video every single day. So that's an influencer / content creator. And so what happens is categories were created. And I've talked to a couple of PR people, and this is basically true. But they were created so that you could filter out the people you didn't want getting hands on something early. You know, whether you couldn't control it or not, or whether you didn't trust them to do due diligence. Because, man, I ain't telling you, there aren't a bunch of people who are just scumballs out there playing a game for like 10 minutes and being all, this game is terrible, you know, and you're just like, dude. And it's, you know, because of embargoes, sometimes it can't be shown for video reasons or whatever. I leave a lot of hints. Like, I have a lot of secrets in my review. I would say almost every review I've ever done has 3 like secrets. And that used to be a thing, is like Easter eggs. It would be, you know, a repeated my face in a frame or so, like just joking stuff. But a lot of times I'll, drop a hint about the ending or something so that people know I got there, because you're not allowed to show it. Almost any review, they'll be like, dude, don't show after chapter 4, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you will get people who are doing it and they're all, yeah, there's no swords in this game or whatever. And you're all, dude, at the second level, you get a sword. What are you talking about? Like, of course how would you ever even say that? And, I saw something that was quite dirty one time. It's pretty much all been removed, but it was pretty crazy where it was like wrong information was in a review. The developer was like, we need you to take it down. And the person was all, pay me for the lost time when I take my video down. And they were all, but it's wrong, completely wrong. And they're like, yeah, well, you need to pay me. And if you claim me, I'll sue you. And it was just like this disaster. I mean, and the developer, that was before I even really was big at all, but I knew a bunch of people in the industry, smaller, who were like working on engines or stuff, and just talking to them. And I was like listening to this story and just being like, damn, man. So it's not just one-sided. There's shitballs on every side, right? Like, that's life. You just try to go out there and deliver as much as you can and hope people like it and trust you. Trust is all you've got. And once that goes away, you're going to be screwed.
No, it's very true. And and this is definitely behind the scenes stuff for you guys who are watching and listening, because it's one of the things that, especially as I've gotten more, over the years, gotten more into reviewing games and, I've worked my way from, indies, because indies will work with anyone because they don't have the PR budget.
Right.
To now, like, working with AAA companies, which it's still surreal for me. But it's funny how when I see other people who are doing reviews, like, there are a lot of people out, they'll put out a review and I'm over here like, did you really actually play that game? Did you play more than like you said, like 10 minutes or so before you threw out something? Because a lot of people do that. And it's crazy seeing that, in this industry where it's like, you would think, like, do we all love the game? Like, do we all love gaming as much? Man, it's like a lot of people.
Dude, come on. And, I mean, and that stuff happens. And since I always tell people I can't see what they're doing. They can't see what I'm doing. I can see that, like, what they said was wrong. Like, that's why that's the farthest I'll go. Because dude, like, of all the things in the world that truly matter, video game reviews are probably one of the least likely to matter in your life. They are.
Yeah.
Like, they just don't matter. I have a cancer. Cancer matters. I'll worry about cancer. I'll worry about my teeth falling out. I'm not going to worry about, like, if somebody dislikes or if I even feel like something's going on weird with a video, because I wasn't there. And in fact, I was already sort of like that, but I learned that from Total Biscuit, because he and I had some exchanges that were pretty testy, and that was me being a jackass. And he was nice enough to help me about a half a year later with one of the multiple streams of YouTube demonetizations. And they were just snappy. They were snippy. And that's because at the time, like, he was a certain size, I was growing, and I think he was seeing an overlap there. And he was the British guy who talked a certain way, and I was the American guy who talked a certain way. I'm assuming that's sort of how it played out. But once I started talking to him, I sort of realized that, like, you can't see into somebody's life too much. And he explained some things to me. He talked and he reached out and helped me. And that's one of the first things. Like, I was already dealing with whoever I liked. You got to pick your battles and who you like. And if you want to reach out. And there were some people I already liked. I'd already started doing little things with Dreamcast Guy. I think by then I had done one or two things with Skill Up. Maddie. No, maybe not Maddie by then. But there was, people I would touch base with. And I sort of liked their stuff. Johnny from Happy Console Gamer. Dude's fucking awesome. And I've never once done a video with him, by the way. I just talked to him behind the scenes, and I just like him a lot. Never met him, never talked to him verbally, but that's how much I like him. So you can't see too far into somebody's life, but at the same time, like having Total Biscuit explain some stuff to me, I think that's what taught me to be like, I just eased off a little bit. I was like, all right, I get it. Like, because some of the stuff I was saying was never mean, but it was snipey, and he'd be snipey back to me. Or it was subtext. What is it called? Subtweeting, where there'd be a little like, blah, 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 or you'd be on a forum somewhere and somebody say something. And then once I got to know him, I was like, oh shit, like it's nothing. Yeah. And one of the things that was explained to me one time by, of all things, my old sensei, he had told me, he's like, you do realize And I think this is a saying from the movies, but he said, everyone is an actor in everybody else's life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're the only person, everybody else is a walk-in extra. Like, you're the only one who's within that camera 24/7. So there's a good chance that you're missing some things. You know, there's a good chance that you're probably not, you know, picking up on stuff. And that's another reason why, like, I don't even know how some of these companies work anymore. Because when I started, man, IGN was raw. But, you know, Ryan, I watch his stuff, and when he talks about things, I'm like, I can get it. But then other people do, and I'm like, what are they talking about? Like, why would they even bring that up? Or why would they cover a game that was 60 hours in a 3-minute review? Like, how do you even do that?
Yeah.
But I guess I'm wrong, right? Because they're doing well.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm wrong. You know, whatever they're doing it right.
So, and that's the other thing, like with how, you know, your videos, like you cover a wide spectrum of games on your reviews. How do you manage your time? Because I know you're always working on something.
Yeah, I'm pretty much always working. The only skill I think I took from the call center job, well, other than like focus, is scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't think people realize when you're scheduling people, man, especially for a call center, you have to figure out how can you get the maximum efficiency before their efficiency drops. How many calls can somebody take? How much work can they do before their efficiency drops, before their happiness drops? Because you do want happy people there. Like, at least I did. We put together pretty good call centers. It was like we hired professionals. We didn't go anywhere else. It was like we hired professionals for that spot. They weren't just doing call center stuff. They do research. And scheduling is what I took into this. So for me, I find, and the 80-hour work weeks mean I still feel like I do less. Like, somebody asked me, do you play more games now or less? And I'm like, oh, less. Because when I used to work, I would have to focus my game playing time in this little pigeonhole of time. Because I'd work 80 hours. And that pigeonhole would be 15 hours. And that's another thing. I don't need sleep. So I will, like, if somebody gives me a game, I can usually, 24 hours. I did a 24 hours Let's stream for No Man's Sky, which is not an enticing game, especially day one it released. And I was able to do 24 hours. I'm pretty good up to 24 hours. So, like, I'll just play games for a long time. And a lot of people be like, oh, that's, you know, you shouldn't do that for, you know, this or that. And I'm like, I do that anyway. I was doing that prior. Like, if I got a game and I wanted to play it a long time, I don't have any restrictions that artificially pop up, you know? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So mostly I would just say scheduling time and an abundance of extra energy. Because, like, I'm in the Discord. I was in the Discord at 2 a.m. this morning. And people are like, what the fuck are you doing? You left at 11 p.m. I'm like, yep, I got my 3 hours. We're good. What are we doing? What are we doing? It's just the way it is. I'll probably stroke out during a podcast, but whatever. Shit happens.
Yeah, because this, you know, with everything that's coming out, like I know with a lot of the AAA games that are dropping,
Yeah.
you know, you and I were both working on a lot of them, and it's like people think that, at least like I've gotten it from a lot of people I know, and sometimes from my audience as well. It's like, oh, you know, you have time to do this, or you want to, you know, relax or play on this game, or if I say like, oh, I'm working on this, and this, and they're like, oh, we'll take time off. I'm like, I can't. I have deadlines. I have embargoes.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, you know, I'm glad you said you do scheduling, because that's one of the things my wife really drilled into me when I first started content creating 5 years ago. She's like, schedule your time out, and I've been doing that. And it's if I didn't have a schedule of, okay, I'm going to review this, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to edit it this time, I'm going to do this at that time. If I didn't have that, I don't think I could do it, especially when you're getting these 30, 40, 60-hour games. You really have to put the time into those.
You do, but I think there's two lies in the industry that
Okay.
we're going to break right now. Boom. On this Hawaii's #1 podcast, we're going to break this wide open.
Do
I'm
it.
just joking. We're not. I've said it multiple times, but I hate this. Fucking devs lie through their teeth about how long a fucking game is.
Yes,
They fucking lie. They will.
Yes, they
I
do.
will get their goddamn PR statement. It'll be like, it's a 65+ hour immersive sim that's massively epic. And I'll be like, nah, I bet you it's 25 hours. And you go in, and that bastard recorded their time walking across the map like a goddamn World War II minesweeper in the ocean. Just going, like, right? Like you're playing the world's worst game of fucking Battleship. It's like, no, That's not your fucking game. And one of the things I do when I play to review, I review organically, meaning if something interests me, it interests me. And if it doesn't, I tag it and tell people why it didn't. So like if there's for example, Witcher 3 had some quests I wasn't a fan of. So I'd just be like, they didn't capture me. You know, I did a couple, and then I was like, this quest chain's sort of shit. I don't want to do this, but I do want to do this one. And you explain that. You don't have to 100% something because that'd be ridiculous. And I also think that's also forcing it, and it becomes a weird thing. You know, at some point it's uncomfortable. But, dude, they lie so much, man. They lie so much. I get so mad because almost every one of them says two things. 100 plus hours, or it's the Dark Souls of blah, 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 blah. It's the Dark Souls of solitaire games. And I'll be like, Jesus. And by the way, I'm the first one to say you can use that comparison. A comparison is nothing more than an easily laced amount of information that most people will understand in a quicker time frame. So I could sit here and say, first, let me describe to you what a Dark Souls game. Fuck that. I'll say it's like the Dark Souls, or it has a Dark Souls feel, right? Even though I'm saying this right now. But what happens with developers is they use that as the tagline. And that does bother me, because the Dark Souls of means nothing. Is it Dark Souls 1, 2, 3? Do you really mean Dark Souls, or do you mean Bloodborne? Is it offensively stratified, or is it something where maybe there's a dual parts of the focus bar and the brake like you might have in Sekiro? Come on, man. Come on. And massively immersive epic. Like if I see that shit, that's why I have the fake commercials I always do. And one of them is me selling my own game called Karak. And it's just me talking about it being like massively immersive, epic, unbelievably incredible, because that's all they do. They just go to Amazon and look at like a Battlefield game and tell me that isn't an adjective / noun / verb generator they've just hit a button on and typed in like, I want giant to be used. I want amazing to be used. And these guys are reviewing their own games, by the way. Have you noticed that? They'll be like,
yes.
this game, it's not like Batman saying it was game of the year and no one gave it game of the year and that became the big joke. But no lie, they'll review it in the PR. They'll be like, so this is a Dark Souls style, 200 plus hours of the most amazing bubble. And I'll tell you if it's amazing. Like, I'm on the review list. I'll tell you if it's amazing. You don't tell me if it's amazing. You know, be like, here's why we're excited. Here's why we think it's amazing. That's fine, but don't review it early. Like it's just disingenuous, man. Something about it is just so corrupt when I see that. Luckily, a lot of them don't. A lot of them are so cool. That's the thing, is like it can come across negative, but also when you look at all the positives, there's so many people I've met or cool situations, and a lot of myths that have been debunked. Like the old man, there's a bunch of those myth of like, oh, the game's review code is only available the day prior because it's a shitty game. First of all, we've had stellar award-winning titles where that has been when the review code is done. Review code, there's 1,000 reasons. Is that possibly one of the reasons impacting the timing of the review code? Absolutely, for sure. But it's only one, and it may not even be one that's come up prior to them choosing to delay the review code. For example, State of Decay 2, a game I enjoyed, but technically was a bit shit and didn't review well, had it 3 fucking weeks prior. So you're trying to tell me that rule only applies to the day prior and it doesn't apply to people saying we don't want you seeing our code? No, because Microsoft will just be like, man, here's State of Decay. 3 weeks prior, play it as much as you want, say what you want. God damn, man. Like some of that, or then you get like Death Stranding where they controlled everything. And they gave people thousands of dollars of stuff. And I'm still I still firmly believe that sometimes that affected some of the reviews I saw. And some of the snippiness that went back and forth between some of those people is because they were just flooding them with stuff. And that's sort of the darkness there. But at the same time, like I said, there's a lot of positives. Getting to play the games early, getting to see, you know, I think one of the cool things is getting to see engines come early, like Unreal or because, dude, when I was growing up, I had to hack Baldur's Gate 1 with like, you know, command code and shit so that you could inject a texture so that, you know, Boo had a fucking blue codpiece or whatever. Like that's it took a bunch of steps. And now, you know, if you've got Unreal or you've got something on, you know, one of those engines, you can go in there, you can replace textures, you can do all this crazy shit. That alone is a huge plus to me, to see how some of these things come about. Mods in games. When I grew up, you could mod a game and fuck up your PC.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, dude, there were games that would put the files on the C drive, and one game I got, Pool of Radiance, the original, would write it into the system on accident. And so it would go into the system drive, and when you uninstalled it, it'd uninstall your Windows, and then you'd reboot, and it'd be like, "Burp, you're screwed." So there's a lot of positive there. You know, we see a lot of that.
Is it not insane, like, back, like, when we were growing up to now, how mainstream gaming has gotten? Like, you never would have thought back then it would be what it is now.
I wouldn't have, but I will tell you this. I think I got lucky because I was huge when I was in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I was 6 foot in 5th grade. And so I never got shit
giant?
for like, yeah, dude, I was huge. I was huge. And I had scoliosis bad, like bad.
Whoa.
But I was growing up, whatever I liked, no one gave me shit, probably because I was massive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like D&D. I'd role play. Like at lunchtime, we'd have a bunch of people, and I never got the negative of those particular nerd elements that only now people are celebrating. It just didn't come up to me. It did come up to my friends, and I do remember hearing friends talk about it. But because they were friends with me, there wasn't that much of a big issue. People just sort of got accustomed to it. And then, as you get older and everybody sprouts up and grows to your height, people just sort of remember you still as the big guy. And I never got shit for that. So, I mean, it's big and it's cool, but my parents were totally fine with it. My parents were fine with Dungeons and Dragons. They were fine with video games. So there wasn't a big stigma. I think the biggest thing is communication about it, because I remember waiting for Game Informer, or not Game Informer, Game Fan, diehard Game Fan. You'd wait a month to get the new magazine, and I think that ability to talk to people like Discord is crazy now. Like, that's what's cooler, is you can get, and it's cynical too, but it's cool to be able, like me and you. Dude, you and I talking when I was growing up would have been pen pals.
Yeah.
Cursive, by the way. My mom and dad would have been like, "What are you doing? You're not writing in BASIC. You need to write in cursive." Dude, you don't write to Hawaii's #1 podcast in fucking, in your chicken scratch shit. You cursive that. My mom was big into that shit, man. She was like, she had us reading and writing when we were young, and she was like, "Cursive that motherfucker." So that's cool, right? The communication is awesome. Like I said, it can be negative, but it's so fucking cool to know that you're in Hawaii right now. Like, and I'm in Oregon. We're closer. Tsunami will hit us both, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you got, like, my podcast has two, Austria, Norway. Austria or Sweden or Norway. Silver's going to be mad because I can't remember where he's from. And then Johnny's in London, and I'm in Oregon. And we're all sitting there talking about games with no time delay, There's something magical about that. So to me, that's
mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. Like, the fact that we're in an age where we can communicate with people around the world in an instant.
Yep.
It's so...
I think when it comes down to also, like, how mind-blowing some things are, for me, it's, you'll see some people say, "Oh, games are bigger or longer." Not really, because I grew up playing, like, Bard's Tale on the Apple II, which was like 80 hours, But it was 80 hours of the same fucking hallway, with a pixelated dude who, like, has one animation for one claw hand, like a Tyrannosaurus, and be like, "Scratch, scratch." So those things have improved, but I also don't have that sense of nostalgia like a lot of people do either, which is weird, because I was just in a conversation a couple days ago, and people were like, "Man, remember the Genesis?" And I do remember playing those games, but I remember it for the friends, because my friends are in my Discord, my real like life friends that I've known physically and have worked with. They're also in the Patreon Discord, so I have real friends that I've known, and then the people on Discord, and I more am attuned to, like, memories of being with friends than I am the games, or, like, something like that. Somebody will talk about N64. What's that? Mario Kart. They'll be like, "Oh, Mario Kart, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, I can't remember Mario Kart as much as I can remember maybe my friends and I playing.
Yeah.
And somebody doing something stupid. I think I'm just more social in that aspect, and I don't remember the games so much. A couple.
No.
But
No, that makes sense.
What was your first system?
Atari 2600.
Me too. Dude. People just don't get it, man. That was the fucking. And by the way, if you ever hear some jackass say, "No, man," I just released a video. Somebody was like, "Ghost of Tsushima made it so that Assassin's Creed Japan should never come out." And I'm like, "Fuck you. You can have multiple games in the genre." If we believed that, I would have stopped at Asteroids, because that game was sweet. That game was awesome. Asteroids, Combat, and Joust. If we believe that kind of shit, we would never have upgraded from the Atari 2600, because those games were pure game. There wasn't, dude, there was like the title screen, you just, it was just there. There was no options. It was like hit a button and hope, baby. It's all on you, right? They didn't even tell you what buttons did what half the time. It was like you had the little booklet that you'd get, Atari 2600 cartridge, and you'd look, and it'd be like button A flaps wings. That's it, because you had one button. Yeah. That's all they gave you, right? They were like, yeah, we could give them 3 buttons, but we don't think they're worth it. We're gonna give them 1. Atari 2600 was the bomb when it came to like straight game. Just go for it. That's what you're playing at this exact moment. I definitely dug that. Were you a Genesis or a SNES fan, or both?
Growing up, I was more of a SNES person, just because my family, I don't know why, we just gravitated towards Nintendo more. Like, gotcha. I think for my parents, the issue that they had with Sega was every fucking peripheral that Sega came out with. They couldn't keep up with it. They're like, wait, okay. So, because I remember when they were going to do Genesis, and then they're like, you know, because we had already had the Super Nintendo, and they were going to get us the Genesis. Then they saw, like, down the road, there's all the add-ons, the Sega CD, the 32X, all that other shit. And my parents are like, no, the Super Nintendo is that's just one thing. We're just going to stick with Nintendo. Yeah. And two, and I think a lot of the younger people don't understand this either, because it's only 3 platforms minus cloud gaming. But back then, you had a lot of companies come and go. Yeah. And it's like, as a parent, I can't imagine being a parent back then and also not knowing about gaming or understanding it,
or seeing like the violence on, because Genesis was always okay with blood and stuff, and I'm sure some parents were like, remember Mortal Kombat changed it to lime green Kool-Aid kind of thing. They were like, lime green blood. So I can see a lot of parents just being like, we're not, my parents were pretty cool about it. I remember that conversation in the D&D, because I was doing Dungeons & Dragons, and my mom was like, do you think it's real? I was like, no, I'm not a fucking idiot. Like, what the fuck? She's like, well, you're playing with swords. I'm like, I'm 8. Like, do you want me to get a job now? None of that made sense. And this is the way I talk to my mom. She used to be like, man, when you get snippy, you were like an adult when you were like 7. You would be like, what? Logically, that makes no sense. I was a little Vulcan. I was just like, this fucking makes no sense. And then they said, do you think you can fly? And I'm like, I have no clue where this conversation is going. But no, I'm not. No, it's not real. And from that point on, D&D games, that was fine, because they knew that I was well adjusted enough that, like, I didn't believe any of that stuff, and I wasn't going to be altered by a game like that. Like, it was Mortal Kombat wasn't going to make me suddenly want to go and fucking inject claws like Baraka and try to fucking, or Baraka's Street Fighter, isn't he? No, Baraka is
he's Mortal Kombat. Yeah.
Who's Street Fighter? Who's the green guy?
Blanca.
Blanca. Oh, I was close. Both B's. Blanca was cool though, man. I didn't have a SNES. I went over to a friend's house, and I had not played Street Fighter. And I remember he had Street Fighter, and I like to be Fatty McFatterson. By the way, favorite characters in games are the fatties, sumos, always. So Virtual Fighter, Fatty. I had to be the sumo in Virtual Fighter 3 when that came out, and they added him. But in Street Fighter, E Honda was the shit. And I'd lose all the time because he's not the greatest. But I remember him and the green guy and just being like, what the fuck? This game is so wild. That game was so ahead of its time. When you look at, like, it went from Streets of Rage style, just walking, and then Data East did a couple games, I don't remember the names, but they were trying to do the fighting thing. And then suddenly you have Street Fighter, and you're just like, holy shit. It was awesome. Awesome time to live.
Yeah. And it's crazy seeing how, like, it's funny because I hear a lot of people talk about how much more creative games were back then and people were innovating. I'm like, if you really were to stop and assess it, back then there was a lot of copycat. Like, a lot. There was a whole shit ton of that. Yeah. I mean, look at SNK and Capcom. They were constantly copying each other.
Data East, Konami. Some of these companies got, like, legit sued for multiple. Yeah. You also see the same thing, which just infuriates me. Maybe because, like, you get to know people. Well, anybody should know this, but you have the thing where people are like holding up, indies like Simba and the Lion King, and they're like, they're like, this is perfection. AAA's terrible, and I'm like, dude, I know a lot of people who work on both. There's some shitballs on both, and there's some awesome people on both. And usually then that conversation breaks down into, well, they might have more creative, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, they may have more creative juice, but maybe the AAA allows them, whatever juice gets through, allows them to spend money and make it look cooler or be more dynamic, whatever. It's like, a lot of people like to truncate everything and pretend one quick explanation is going to fix it all. And it's just like, nah, I don't think so. Usually there's a lot more gray in there than black and white.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I definitely want to dive into with you. We're an hour into this, and I'm shocked I didn't ask this. What was the decision for you to get into YouTube and content creating podcasts?
I got laid off.
What?
Yeah, you mean into YouTube fully?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did a couple reviews and they were doing well, but I'm absolutely sure I would have never taken the jump because my paycheck was so good at my old job. So I got laid off, and I had paid for my wife to go through school. And we talked about it, and I was like, yeah, I paid for her to go through school. And she's like, well, do you want, to use some of your retirement? Because it was one of those retirements you can't roll over. It was like, they're going to pay it out. So we had some money. So I just looked at it and I was like, yeah, I'll just go ahead and do it. And I did it. And that was pretty much it. There hasn't really been a stoppage to it. There hasn't been a time where I'm like, There's been times where things hit hard, like Total Biscuit helped me out with demonetization. I get demonetized so much. It's ridiculous. It's like a battle, and I can't even track it sometimes. Why? Even Total Biscuit did help me. He talked to people at YouTube on my behalf to be like, is there an algorithm out there that like we don't know about that's only trapping this fucking bearded fool? Like, is there an anti-logger is there some anti-logger rule on YouTube and he looks too much like he's out there cutting wood? I have no clue. But yeah, I got laid off, and it was just like, I looked at what I was able to do. I've done life coaching. I've taught martial arts. There were some of those that came up, and I could have done, more call center stuff. I could have returned to probably my old job, but it was like, oh, let's see how this goes. And I remember I had 200 subscribers. This was heart-wrenching, by the way. I had 200 subscribers, and a video did so well that YouTube was like, your video has done too well. This is how long I've had troubles with YouTube. Different channel. They were like, you've done so well that we don't think it's possible. So we think you've done something. They didn't say bots. They didn't say views. They were like, we think, and this was back at 200 subscribers, like only a month into the game. And I remember having to change channels, make a new channel, and feeling like gut sick from it. Being like, I'm going to lose, I'm never going to get those 200 back. Yeah. And that's one of the things I always keep. Like, whenever anybody asks me, they're like, oh, like, why haven't I changed much? And it's because I'm pretty good with my memory, and I remember that day on purpose. I'll be like, remember that day. Remember what it felt like to have 200 and just be like, this is it, man. This is going to suck. And having to watch those people go away. And then I was telling all my friends, I was like, hey, man, can you subscribe to my channel? I had to switch channels. I had to do this. I had to do that. Because I started out doing ARMA or Operation Flashpoint mod videos. That's how I started YouTube. Before, because I was good with a certain mod and making mods for it. And that's how I sort of started out. And then I think it was Destiny 1 was my review that went so well that they were like, it's impossible. There's no way. And I think what they were really mad about, because I was young, I don't remember reading, what they sent me as a claim. I think what was really mad is I'm pretty sure I got that one street date, because I do know people here in town who will give me a embargo broken date copy. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And what it was probably a claim, of having, because they can still claim you even if the embargo breaks. Most of them won't. Like, if I get a street date, as long as I hold to the embargo other reviewers I held to, usually they're okay. Because even Polygon, IGN have actually stated in reviews, this is a street broke copy. We're not held to embargo, but we're going to hold to the one we know of. And usually they don't get hit. But yeah. So I just got laid off, man. I don't think I would have probably done all this had I, you know, or I would have got laid off for something else and tried it. But could have jumped into porn. Just joking. Logger porn, is that a category? I bet you it is. Right? There's a category. All categories exist on Pornhub. You just have to search for it once, and it's like somebody's looking for logger porn. Make a category, John. It's like, all right, man. What were you gonna say?
Shit. What was I gonna say? Oh yes, you and I have a lot in common. That's kind of how I went full time too. Because okay, slight difference. I wasn't laid off, but I was going to be laid off. So I had a director of the director of one of the call centers, who is a fucking idiot. Just so you know. That person is a fucking idiot. Doesn't know. I don't know how the fuck they got that job. But then that's a lot of people. That's the politics of
yeah, that's the politics of jobs.
Yeah. So they they fucked up on. We were basically setting up a new location on the west side of the island, and the day it needed to go live, I told them like I set the system in place to automatically turn all the phones on. Here's all the login information for all of the, the call center reps that are going to be there. Don't touch anything. So this director, who likes to just press buttons and fuck around, for whatever reason, fucked up the whole infrastructure of how I set up that telephony line. And so I got a call, and I remember, because the whole on-call thing, I got a call at 4 a.m. because that's when we were supposed to. It was supposed to go live at 3:30 because they were gonna take in early patients. So, got a call, and they're saying no calls are going through. And so I was getting phone call after phone call, and I went and I set it up. I went and looked in. I was trying to figure out what happened. And then the director was yelling at me, like, what did you do? What did you do? And then, as you know, you can go look at the history of changes.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
who did what? So I looked, and I saw that fucking idiot, which I have no problem calling her a fucking idiot, she made the changes. She knows what she's doing. And so I had to go and fix it. So then I got called into a meeting the following week about that. And she basically was trying to throw me under the bus to take the blame. Here's the other thing about corporate America. A lot of people will throw you under a bus to save their own ass.
Yeah. And
she was so adamant about throwing me under a bus to her director. And I presented the information of, look, this is, I understand what she's saying, but this is what happened. Here's the change log. It shows who accessed it, at what time, what they did, And so she got in trouble. And so what happened was the next day I came in, which was Tuesday, and I'm the same as you with remembering things. Like and especially because I attached a feeling to it. I came in Tuesday. Everyone started looking at me when I came into the call center. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Nobody would talk to me. So I felt like something was wrong. At the end of that day, my supervisor calls me and says, I'm writing you up for this, and this. And I'm like, why? Because the director said that you did this. I'm like, I did what? Like, you're spreading rumors, you're doing this, you're going around, you're talking to other call center reps. So it's like, I've never done that in the near decade I've worked here. I've never done that. So then I refuse to sign the write-up. Next day I come in, I get like my whole office, my desk, everything cleared out.
Yeah.
And then I got to go work in my boss's office. So the day after that, I go into work. All my accesses are restricted because she went and made, she was friends with the security access giver guy. So I couldn't go to certain sites, which restricted my ability to do on-site surveying. And then every day I came in the next week and a half, it just became something else. And it was just more drama. And she kept escalating it just because I had proved that she fucked.
Yeah.
And I was just doing my job. So it got to a point where, you know, I was talking to my wife about it. Either I quit or they're going to fire me. And even my boss had told me, he's like, I'm probably going to have to fire you. So I'm like, I'm going to quit. So I remember the day. It was September 4th of last year. And I just decided I'm going to leave. I left before they could fire me. And I just dove all into this. And it's for anyone who's thinking about just jumping into content creation, YouTube and all that, have a plan. Or if you're thrown into it or you just jump into it, bust your ass, because this is not easy.
Yeah.
It's not.
There's a lot of people who think. There's a lot of people also who think that, like we talked about it prior, who think they can buy their way in. What's funny is, you know, there is a lot of backstabbing and stuff like that in both real world and, I'm assuming YouTube. I just don't pay attention mostly to what anybody's ever saying. But there is stuff, but it is funny that, boy, I've also been the shit worker. One of my first jobs, man, I was so bad. Like, if I had worked for me, I would have probably held my head underwater until I perished. I was such a bad worker. I was so bad. And it's funny because, you know, it's like, well, you know, you have that time where like a boss lays you off and, you know, they're a shitball. That's true. But man, I've also had some amazing bosses as well. And I think that's the one thing in YouTube that I do miss is there's team in YouTube. Apparently they always fall apart, at least from what I'm seeing, unfortunately. But I've chosen my team in YouTube to be like Discord and the people that I do podcasts with, like or go on like yours, because I don't go on everybody's. You know, there's certain things, and those are the people that like all that are sort of within my group. And that's one thing that unfortunately you can't get when you start. And I actually, in a weird way, think that's one of the biggest issues. So when I start at all my jobs, my physical, real jobs, there's usually a person there or two, and there's always a dick, but there's usually somebody who's like, hey, man. And that person is like that little bit of a funnel to give you information. Maybe they're a shit person. They're going to give you bad information. But there's usually somebody there who's like sort of gives you a little bit. And there, with YouTube, there can be almost nothing. You know, I've seen people who just, they can't get any, and they'll do the shit where they'll like say, you know, let's, what's the term? Oh, collaborate. First of all, I'm actually a big fan. Collaboration is a fucking terrible word. Never say that. Say, do you want to do a podcast? You don't have to say collaborate. That's a business transaction. That is quite literally, like, that is basically prostitution versus, you know, sex with, you know, somebody you like. It's like a transaction. I do not like collaboration as a term. It is wrong. It sounds dirty. But like, hey, you know, I like your stuff. You like mine. Why not enjoy it? Why not be like, hey, this is somebody I want to talk about games with, or even if it's not about games. That's something that I think when people come in, it can be difficult. So they start saying like, oh, I need to take this shortcut collaboration. I need to do this. I need to pay a bunch of money. I have a friend, he's paid so much in audio stuff and just hasn't grown his channel and video stuff. And I'm just like, dude, the reason why you haven't is because all of that money could have been used on thousands of other things. Yeah. Whether it's time to research a game and do something unique no one's done before, whether it's maybe even, I don't know if the term would be advertising because I've never done it, but I'm well, I'm assuming there's agents or whatever. You know, there's ways that you could like get help professionally as well, even if it's just like hire somebody to fix your thumbnails if they look like shit, right? But people try to buy themselves into all kinds of stuff, and usually that turns into a problem. They try to buy themselves. I've seen so many people on Twitch with like amazing setups, and there's like 12 people. And they have amazing setups. I'm like, do you know why? It's because, especially if you start out, if you get that over time, that's a different thing. Then you can look at it as like, okay, I've got this all set up, but I'm still having issues. Let's work on, you know, do I need to grind away because I'm, you know, in a smaller segment or whatever. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people, man. There'll be people in the Discord who, because I have a level on the Discord where I'll use my tools, my software, my scheduling, and I'll help people set up their channels. And I'm like, okay. Because, and I'm like, yeah, you request money or I do request money for it. It is a high level on the patron on purpose because I want to make sure they're devoted. Either they're rich like a Saudi prince, and then I don't give a fuck, or they're devoted and they're going to sit there and listen to my suggestions, which aren't always right because everybody's is different. But there's a lot of people, man, who will try to, Like, you can even tell they'll come into even our Discord, because my Discord's $5. I charge for my Discord. And one of the reasons why I do is because it was free for a while, which was a disaster. Never have a free Discord, people. And we pay for it. People will come in, and I can even tell within seconds. I'll be talking to the admin group and be like, might want to keep an eye on that person, because you can tell that they're already like discussing their channel or like watching. Like, there's something about it it's not coming together as a group, but it's, it comes across as insanely disingenuous and most likely going to be, and it won't be like, watch them. We've banned 2 people in the entire history of our Discord. So it's not that, but it's just like, watch them in the terms of make sure they're not misusing stuff or using DMs, because a lot of people jump into Discords and they'll be like, DM, hey man, come join my Discord. We did have issues with that. We have a couple people who still do that. And I don't know if they don't know if like somebody's not going to, tell us, but you'll get an admin who's like, hey dude, this person's like telling everybody to join their Discord again. All right. That is sort of underhanded shit. And that's why I think is if you can gather a group around you that you like, you can reach out to them. I've talked to Dreamcast Guy a bunch of times. I hear people be like, I don't like Dreamcast Guy's voice. Fuck, whatever. Like, Bobcat Goldthwait is, to me, one of the best comedians in the world, and he sounds like a freak if you hear him. So, like, I'm used to people sounding different. But I reach out to him, and I've asked him stuff, and he's a far smaller channel. I think you should just find people that you can, maybe they reach out to you, and if they do, and it feels like a solid, part of your time, just drop a hello, too. I've talked a lot with Del Wraith from the Angry Joe channel. And I've talked to other Joe. I've talked to Angry Joe, though, too, on Twitter. But, like, I always tell people, don't turn it into a collaboration. That's dirty. That's nasty. Like, I don't think in the times you and I've ever talked, that word has even been used. It's like, hey, man, do you want to come on the podcast and jive? Do you want to bitch about people? Okay, sounds good. It's not collaboration. Like, that's nasty, man. It just doesn't even sound right. And you get it sometimes with video, people, visitors on podcasts too, where they're trying to pimp their stuff. But at the same time, you get amazing people, man. I don't know about you, but it was pretty eye-opening going to an E3 or 2 and seeing some of the people behind the scenes on games and how cool they were. Because, you get that big company must suck kind of thing, which I've always wondered, like, or rich people must suck. And I'm like, where's rich? Because if I make a certain amount of money, am I just going to be bad the next day? Like, how is it like, oh man, you made $40,000 this year? You're a bad person because you made 4,001 the next year. You never quite know. But I went to a PAX and to a E3, and I got to meet some people behind the scenes like Ubisoft and EA, and you first realize they're people. Some suck, but a lot were very, very cool, and not cool in that want to sell you anything. Just like, hey man, oh, you like to do this? Or I watched your channel. That's another thing. You'll have somebody who you never expected. They'll be like, oh, I know you. And which you never had any contact with prior, which is always nice. Even as a smaller channel, I know I've talked to a lot of small channels who said that that's happened to them, that the PR people have been watching their stuff, and which is always really positive. I think it's cool somebody gets that sort of shout out sometimes.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of the things, like, touching on, like, when it comes to Discord, I've had a situation too where people will join my Discord. I used to have it where, people I'd have the link and people can just hop in,
right,
and go from there. And I've had so many issues with that. and it's primarily been with other content creators. Well, they'll come in, they're trying to promote their own Discord or veer people to their channel. Like, I still have a rule about self-promotion. Like, you're not going to self-promote if you're not going to interact and engage in the Discord. Yeah. And I've had people that just come in and all they're doing is self-promoting, or I have people that come in, they sit there and they say nothing. And I'm like, okay, so I had a policy. I haven't been enforcing it lately, but I had a policy where it's like, okay, so if you're going to come in and you're a content creator and you're not going to, or anyone, if you're going to be inactive, after 30 days, you'll get removed. My mods would just remove you because it's like, we're trying to keep it to where there's people who actually want to be there. I understand that, especially when it comes to Discord, you can be in so many different Discords. I understand that.
I pare mine down.
I've literally had to do that too, because it's like, I constantly, people like, oh, join this Discord. I'm like, I can't, between mine, my wife's, maybe one or two others. And especially if you're like working with like different companies, they'll have like a Discord for their game or for their company, and you're in that. I'm like, I can't keep up with, my attention span can only go to so many things at once. So, I've had to deal with that. I've had to deal with the drama of dealing with other content creators, and it's typically I've never had drama with bigger content. Well, maybe one player. Since I had issues with him before, but like when it comes to like game, like other content creators, it's typically the smaller ones who have this idea that, and it's kind of a parasitic thing. They're like, oh, you're bigger than me, so I'm going to use you to grow myself. And it's like, I'm not trying, again, I'm not trying to call out smaller. Well, fuck it. Yes, I am. I'm kind of calling out smaller channels, and I'm small myself, but I respect those who put in the work and do the work. This idea that, collaborating with someone bigger, I'm like you, I don't like that. And I think it's because we come from the corporate background. I don't like the term collaboration. And so many times when I've worked with or tried to help, because there's a point where I was helping smaller content creators or people my size start getting review codes from companies or start interacting with PR people, because I'm thinking, hey, I understand how to negotiate. I know how to interact with people. I know how to build and establish networks and relationships. I can teach that and just show that, anyone who's interested, I'll show it to them. And I've been bitten in the ass so many times from smaller creators who just want something free. And they think that they can just use, like many of them have just used me for something free. I've even had one guy, and this is me ranting because it's one of my pet peeves. So I apologize if I'm coming off a certain way. But I've had this one YouTuber, he's a smaller channel, like 300 or so subs. And I've helped him with connections and stuff like that. And then he's had this situation where, well, not situation. He's had this thing with me where he it's clear that he doesn't like me. I don't know why he doesn't like me. But every time he interacts with me, it's always he wants to get something out of me. So like I had said before at one point, like in my Discord, because he was part of it and he's been booted since, but I said that I would love to have a team, because at some point, if I ever grow to that point where I can have a team, because I can't cover every single game, and there's only so much time in the day for me to deal with things. So this guy who's never written a review, who does videos that have no traction, tells me that he can help me out. And I'm like, what do you mean you can help me out? He's like, I want to give you some tips. I want to help you out. If you give me, I'll be part of your team. You just got to give me games and you got to pay me. And I'm like, what the hell is your proof of work? Where's your resume? Where's your body of work? Where's your resume of work? And he's like, well, I'm just trying to grow. Okay, that's not how you do it.
I have been insanely lucky, like insane, and most likely it's because I did set up the systems in a particular way. Even our Discord was set up in a particular way when I started to weed out like bullcrap and sponsored stuff. I didn't want, if devs came in, I didn't want them, talking about their game too much, that kind of stuff. There was all this stuff I had set up, and man, I'm on the other end of that, where, and admittedly, I just don't pay a lot of attention. So there could be something where, somebody in the Discord's mad at me for a while and I won't even know, because I just don't. Things take a lot for me to care about, like a lot. Yeah. So like if you and I knew each other and you got mad at me in real life, I would never be all, oh, I need to cover my back because he might actually physically attack me. I just I've seen real stuff. None of this online shit matters to me. So it can take a while. But I would say overall, I feel that we've been insanely blessed, even with smaller creators. Like we've got, Johnny streams. Well, a couple of them have stopped even because they were so small, it just didn't gain traction, whatever. And they jumped in. And I don't exactly know you know, what it's like being like a Total Biscuit size or something where you're probably getting pinged all the time. But I would say one thing, you know, as you're growing and you're trying to find somebody, it's just best to find somebody who reacts to you and you react to them naturally, whether that's on Twitter and you make a post and they laugh and you say, "Hey, sup," and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Don't go off. Don't be like, "Sup, man, I've been a fan forever. Let's work together." And you're like, "Okay, here we go." You know, it's like it's not even here we go in a bad thing. It's here we go. I got to pick now apart what's real and what's made up for, you know, for this person to get whatever they can out of it. But I also, at the same time, there has to be a healthy amount of openness too to working with people, because there's been a couple times I know for a fact. So I ignore a shit ton of emails and I don't know if they're real or not. And this is, so my biggest weakness, I will say, is my complete and utter lack if tomorrow everything dies. Like, I just have no care. I mean, I want to do well on the channel, but if tomorrow it went away, just like when I got laid off, I'd be like, what do I do now? Do I start another one? I would just, it would suck, but I would just be like, okay, whatever, move on. But you get this thing where people they also get attached to everything so much that I just think there's like an unhealthiness. There's a lack of openness sometimes, and that can hurt too. It's really also something where it's different for everybody, because video games is so weird. So I found this out, dude, and this is so true. I talked to somebody who switched their reviews. There were 3 somebodies at a PAX, and we got together, and I was like, you guys all within about a 1-year period had switched their reviews away from scored to non-scored. Now, I personally, and this is just me, I do not believe that some magical theorem has changed, some magical calculation in the world where it has suddenly changed, where a number or buy, wait for a sale cannot in some way equal your idea of a game. You can put a rating. Do I like numbered ratings? No. Do I like stars? No. I like words and I like price. I think those work. But that doesn't mean I think their scores should go away. I just don't use them. And they all these guys and a girl were like, yeah, we've stopped using scores. And do you know what it was, man? This is so fucking crazy. They openly admitted it's because they just didn't want to get shit for putting their foot down. And I'm like, no. That's exactly what you want to do, is put foot. Now, admittedly, I was coming at this from a different angle than they were. I was like, I do want to put my foot down because there's certain things if I do all these reviews and then I do a talkie video, I want people to listen to both with a certain sense of finality. Not everything has to be a review, but I want them to know that if I'm doing a talkie video, I've come at it not just to make money that day, which is what a lot of people do. And no, they did, man. They were very open about it, by the way. And I don't know if they've announced it on their videos, but some of them are over 1 million. And they were like, yeah, we've sort of just gone away from really giving a score because you have to put your foot down and people will hold you accountable for it. And I'm like, well, they should. Don't you think they should hold you accountable? Now, I don't think that they have to. I was just asking, don't you think? And they were all, yeah, but we just don't want to deal with it. And I don't really blame them. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think for whatever reason they did it. But at the same time, I was like, that's how bad it can be. So like, that's how like cynical it can be, is that people are so nervous about, let's say, I saw recently somebody was reviewing reviews. That's all they were doing. So there was no content. It was like a reaction of a reaction, but replace the reaction with a review. And I was like, what does that even mean? How do you even, where do you even come at that from? Because you're not the person. You didn't have the experience they did with it. It's not like even a book, because we all read the same words in a book.
Yeah.
But if you play Fallout 4 and you go left and I go right, our experiences can be vastly different, including quest, interactivity, all that. It's just really weird to hear that. And they were like, yeah, I dropped out. I'm just going to, start like sort of softing the answers and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Not, like I said, not even in a negative way, just in they were so nervous about all that constant negative feedback, because you can't be right. Dude, I don't take any money from anybody. And if I like a game, and people will tell me this, the same person will be like, I love that you're independent. And then I will not agree with them on a game. And they're like, you were paid off, or you're a hater. And I'll be like, dude, last week you sent me money on PayPal and were like, you're amazing. Here's a donation because you're independent. And I was independent in this decision. If you and I were best friends living near each other, and if we were in the same room, and you were like, I disagree, Dragon's Dogma is bad, which I love Dragon's Dogma, I would never go, can't be trusted. From now on, fuck it, can't be trusted, and just walk off. But for whatever reason, that happens in game reviews, and I think you're starting to see that feedback. Even IGN, I've noticed they've been doing some weird shit lately with some weird side videos and even a couple goofy videos, and I'm like, it must be hard for them too, because they're just the top, just like, if I wanted, I could aim at them in videos. I could eat without getting in any trouble, because they say, punch upwards. I think that's fucking stupid, but they say that. There's definitely that coming around, and I think there's the reactions are starting to be a thing, reviewing reviews, and I think I can see why some people step away from it, because though I say be open, I do get why some people close themselves off. Total Biscuit turned his comments off when he came down with cancer, and we had to talk about it because I couldn't understand. I was like, dude, I've had cancer. If somebody told me go die, it would not change there would be no impact on my life. Those are words. It means nothing. It's windpipe sound. But for him, it was impacting him. That was actually one of the things we argued about, as I was like, that seems pretty, you're just turning your flow off of responses back to your videos. And he's like, dude, do you think this is something? Total Biscuit was awesome, by the way. I know some people have an issue. This guy, he helped me out so much, but one of his best things was we were tweeting, and he was like, do you think even for a second that because I turned off YouTube comments, I can't find feedback on my videos in like a quarter of a second, whether it be forums or somebody tweeting me or blah, blah, blah. He's like, that's one avenue of thousands. Steam forums, by the way, which are just cancer. He's like, no, you can find it anyway. So it was, I'm glad I opened up to him, because he definitely helped me out in a lot of ways and made me sort of see, even if just reinforcing what my thoughts were. But he was very cool in being able to sort of see it from somebody who was big, and he was open to helping people, which is like sort of what you have to do as well. Even though, like you said, be at the same time careful. Yeah. It sounds like you can't get it right, doesn't it? If you listen to
it really does.
It's like, okay. Don't, but do, but only do it when you can't, but maybe. Have a good one. Thanks for watching the #1 Hawaii podcast. People are just like, what the fuck?
I didn't know you had. Okay, so that's another thing we have in common, because I'm actually 4 years in remission from colorectal cancer.
Oh, good. Congratulations.
I didn't know you had cancer.
Dude, I've had a pretty fun life. Let's just say that. Yeah, I had it twice when I was younger. So,
Damn.
yeah, it's been a pretty unique life for me. I've had some run-ins. I'll just say that. That's why none of this stuff matters, at all. It's so. And did you go to school in Hawaii?
Here and in Memphis, Tennessee, where my dad's from.
Memphis might have been a little rougher, but where I went to school was a logging town, very small logging town, very rough. We had fist fights every single day were not at all uncommon, because you were just young. There was nobody bringing gats to, you weren't getting shivved like a prison movie. It was just young kids with a lot of energy. You get mad, you punch each other, and then you're best friends and you don't know why, and you're sharing a milk. Like, I'm not lying. That would happen all the time. You'd fight your best friend, and 30 minutes later. And I had it, and then a friend of mine, he's passed away from it. He had it. And it just, since that time, I mean, even when I was younger, though, but since that time, I've just been like, none of this shit really matters. And not in a nihilistic way, but I just mean what if somebody says something about you? What does that,
Really? Yeah.
What does that really mean? And, I can say it back with the best of them, and I will sometimes, but a lot of times it's just like, okay, it's YouTube, it's reviews. I think Twitch is harder, and I firmly believe that, by the way. I can record a video. So there's two things, and I don't know if you'll agree. This is interesting. I want to see if you agree. Here's what I think. YouTube is much more difficult when it comes to comments, because 6 years later, somebody can tell you you're stupid on a video you did 6 years ago. However, you can cultivate the video in any way, shape, or form you want and upload it and control everything. Where Twitch has no control whatsoever with live, instant feedback, but that feedback goes away either when that stream is done and it would have to go to another avenue, or when they delete the VOD. And so to me, switching between the two has been rough because, like, for example, if somebody was in my chat, it hasn't happened, but if somebody was in my chat and said something, I'm known to be really brutal. And I could see somebody snipping what I said and being like, oh my God, he's homicidal. Right? Like, so there's total differences, total strength differences that and you can do both. You for sure can. I just think that they both have pretty severe weaknesses and strengths. And you can, if you do either one for a small amount of time, you can really feel probably what you're best at. And it's usually never both, unless you're really good.
No, I fully agree with you.
Do you like Twitter or do you like YouTube or I'm sorry, Twitch?
To be honest, I prefer Twitch because I like that live and in the moment feeling.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very spur of the
energetic, spur of the moment kind of guy.
Yeah. Whereas YouTube, I kind of feel like my love and passion for YouTube has been dying over this last year, just because between all of the algorithm changes, the constant demonetization, some things take off. Like there's some videos I've done that just take off and I have no idea why. And then ones I put all my effort and energy into just don't do well at all. Like I used to get like tens of thousands of views of videos, whereas now it's like I'm lucky if a video breaks a couple thousand,
right? If
not a couple hundred. I have no idea what changed. So it's like, and then with streaming on YouTube, I was doing that before, and then I was constantly getting hit within seconds with demonetization. So it's like, I'm just
yeah, people don't realize how bad demonetization is. Here's another thing. You cultivate and control and edit a YouTube video. So you can have your 40 hours of gameplay for your review, usually 20 or 30 because developers are lying. And then you do your editing, which whatever. Now, admittedly, I don't edit. I quite literally memorize every file name. I change the file names as I'm recording, so it's easier for me to slide it in there. I do the recording, and I can slide the stuff in quite quickly. I'm not good at editing. You're not going to see a lot of fancy. You'll see some splits, and I certainly love doing jokey stuff. But it is, to me, crazy that one of my biggest videos of all time made $47. $47 because of demonetization. Hit 1 million, $47, baby. Boom! I was just, and I saw something on like a website where they were like, here's how much top influencers get paid for $1 million. That's like a new thing where like people are saying what they make. Whatever they're making, I don't know what they're doing, because they're saying it's not ads. They're saying it's not sponsored, but they're like, here's how much I made for 1 million video or 1 million view video. And I'm like, $47. And they're all, I don't know what their name is, but it's like $2,500 or, $5,500. And I'm like, I don't know where. Now, admittedly, some of the big ones that haven't been demonetized over time have made good money, but I get demonetized almost instantly. And then I have to fight it. And then it goes live. That's the thing Total Biscuit was helping me with. I was having this very weird timing. I'm like you streaming. I can now not hit live. And it's already, I videotaped this, or not videotaped, but I recorded it and showed it to my Discord. I went in to get ready to stream on YouTube. I typed in ACG dash, and I got like live stream, and it was like little red line came up and says this video will be demonetized. I was like, I haven't. What video? That's a title. What the? So I don't know what's going on. There's obviously something they've seen in my past where they were pinged it, and so it checks. And some videos don't get demonetized, but a lot do, and they get demonetized instantly. I fight it, and a good number come back on. But you know what? YouTube's smart. YouTube, you can't tell me they're not doing this on purpose. I feel like they purposely demonetize you in the heat of the video, and then undemonetize you when it's not as popular.
Yeah.
And in some way, there's a monetary change there, because I've been told I was supposed to get, Total Biscuit told me this. He's like, you're supposed to get, if they remonetize you, you're supposed to get the money. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. They're not paying views. They're just getting my video. They state right there, we won't run the same ads. So they're not running the same ads. So whatever YouTube is trying to tell you they do is a lie, because they state in the dashboard that they actually will do either restricted or no ads. And what my personal belief is, they just get out of jail free card, because they're like, okay, Karak will upload this, we'll get 500,000 views, and even more importantly, we've built it into Karak's mind that he needs to make sure to have a person watch his other video and watch another video, which helps us get it trending, but we're not going to pay him for the video. And so in a way, all I'm doing is inboarding all these people to watch a little bit of my video and then jump to somebody else's. And I don't know, man. Like, you can't tell me there's not artificial intelligence just called like how to screw people that's running at YouTube right now. Just because yourself, I've heard other people tell me stories where I'm just like, that just doesn't make that. Dude, remember when they de-verified everybody out of the blue like 3 months ago? And luckily, only twice now have I been the first person to do something. When they did the first demonetization, I said, patrons, I need your help. And patrons came forward and it helped me continue the channel. It would have been shut down. And then second, I got de-verified. No one had done a video. And I woke up and saw it. And I was like, because people give you shit, right? They'll be like, who cares if you, and I'll be like, I'm not going to listen to anybody. I'm going to do this video. I'm going to pump it out there. And if I'm wrong, I can delete it, you know. And I did the video and like Yongyi and other people, you know, carried it. And that helped, you know, get some word on it and got YouTube to fix their shit. It's so crazy. In the middle of the day, in the middle of the night, they just changed their entire system without telling people.
Yeah, and people just don't understand how frustrating it is to deal with that. So like for me, at this point, like I before all the demonetization issues and all that, I was doing decent enough to pay some bills. I'll say that. Plus I have Patreon. Plus I have, you know, channel. I had past tense had channel members, and also had you know, subs on Twitch, which I switched over to Twitch about 6-7 months ago, just because of the issues with streaming on YouTube. And I think I brought that up on your podcast too.
Yeah.
I switched over to doing that, and it's like when people think like, oh, you know, you're doing YouTube, you're rolling in the dough. You're really not, you know. And I've gotten criticisms from some people. They're like, oh, you got Patreon, you're e-bagging and this and this, and I'm like, no. I'm putting out work. I'm putting out a product. So, you know, I if you want to support, you know, that's why I like how you say in your video, like, hey, if you like it, maybe subscribe. Like, you're not telling people, you know, that people do that. Like, share, follow, comment, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. Like, if you want to, like, I greatly appreciate everyone who supports because it goes a long way. It really does.
I have people who are so mad at me for saying that, by the way.
Really?
Oh, dude, maybe subscribe. And what's funny is it was an accident. Well, I do when I'm talking to people. If somebody says I like this and I don't, I'll be like, you know, you do that weird sound where it's like the dismissive sound. So I went, maybe subscribe. And there was a person in my YouTube who was like, I fucking hate that sound. And I was like, oh, wrong thing to say. So from that point on, I was just like, maybe subscribe. And I was just making it worse and worse. And people were fucking loving it, man. It was so weird because it was so opposite what I expected. You know, there's always going to be somebody who hates you for whatever you do. But there was a lot of people who were like, dude, that's hilarious. Like, you can tell now. It's just Karak just taking the piss. It's just, and it worked. It was just like, dude, don't come at me with that shit. Because it's like, you know, we all have different mannerisms we use. And we use different things. I use alliteration if people get mad, you know. Hazardous Hamlets. Somebody will be like, you use too many, you know, of the same blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fucking listen better, bitch. Listen better. Like, up your intelligence game, you dumbass. Like, that's, I mean, what are we talking about here? You know, words. But it is crazy how people get so mad. But it's cool. It's cool also because this is a time when somebody who gets in can do Twitter. They can do Twitch. They can, well, D-Live's not around. So they could do Twitch. They could do YouTube. They could do Facebook. And they can sort of do them all and see what works too, which I think I couldn't do. Twitch wasn't a thing. I remember when YouTube used to say you were live on Twitch. That's how small Twitch was. YouTube would actually tell people to go watch us on Twitch until Twitch stole their breakfast. So I think that's cool that newcomers can try everything. You know, they can do a cultivated video on YouTube, look at it and go, you know, they can even, like I do with, well, I don't do it with the podcast anymore, but record the podcast and then put it up on YouTube as well. There is no overlay though, or overlap though. I was in Delra's channel a couple days ago and we were talking. He's like, oh, hey everybody, this is, you know, Karak and I've been talking a bunch, you know, check him out as a reviewer. No one in his Twitter knew who I was, or in his Twitch. No one. They were like, YouTube? I mean, that's what they sounded like. What's YouTube? It was so crazy because there's just no overlap. But or such a very small amount of overlap. It's really interesting. That's why I say everybody should try whatever they can. And if Facebook works for you, man, do it. You know, if Twitch works, because we don't know where we'll be tomorrow. Like YouTube could crumble. They haven't made money. So we don't have any clue. They could demonetize. Remember how they changed everybody's monetization and made it like 20 times harder? So do whatever you want. Do what you enjoy, and don't try to do it as a job. And you'll probably do, that if you do become affiliate or whatever, that first buck you get will feel better that you didn't scrounge for it. And it might be a more enjoyable overall path for you to take, at least right now, until this shit gets solidified and, they start supporting people, which they're not going to do.
No, they're not. And it's one of the things too, like I really want to, okay, before we dive into it, there's a question up above, and I want to hop on it before we move on. It's from, let's see, let me find it. This is from RK4247. It says, on average, how often are people trying to use you guys for growth?
Oh, I wouldn't know that. Not as often as they just want to hang, but it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't have an exact number. It's a good question, though. But I don't track it also. I think that's depressing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Mark it as something. It's almost like tracking, cancer.
Yeah.
A lot of people handle cancer differently. Some people will be like, my name is blah, 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 and I have this kind of cancer. Like, it becomes their identity. That's fine. That works for them. Other people are like, I'm not sick. I just have to go in for chemo because something's trying to kill me and I'm going to fight. Everybody does things different. And I think when it comes to what you track positive and negative out of YouTube is pretty much up to you. Because I don't even think you and I would track it the same.
No. I've had my experiences that I guess you could say, like my wife says, I'm a little jaded at times. Like when the other creator comes at me like using that term, oh, let's collaborate. Oh, we should work on something. I'm immediately like disinterested because I'm like, what is your angle?
Which is sad because they may just be using that word because they heard that's the word to use.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by you should remember but not count them all, because then you will. That's what I was getting to with how many emails I've ignored too. I've got emails where like, let's work together, and I think they're a company, and they may not be. It might be a person who's just reaching out, but dude, I get like 200 Twitter DMs a day. So it's like, that's Twitter. That's Twitter. And then Twitch, you have people DMing, and then you have Discord, and then you have YouTube. So
yeah,
can't remember it all.
No, you definitely can't. I like what Braz Goldley says. ACG is too honest. He says, if you're a bitch, he will say you're a bitch.
Probably, but not. I'm not gonna. If my mom was doing something, I don't think I'd be like, Mom, no, I have. And remember, that's only me. I mean, everybody comes at these things with their own viewpoint.
Oh man. But
it makes sense to. I don't know. I think it makes sense to be pretty clear and not a jackass. Because you know what the big complaint is that I have in life is when you meet a person who says, I'm a bitch and people should just be prepared for that. And they got the little head waggle. And I'm like, dude, that's not the way to work your life. That's not even what I do. I'm not saying, I'm going to be this way and you need to do exactly what I say. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that if I have a question, I usually don't mince words. Or if I have a thought, I don't mince words. But it doesn't mean I can't change, because there's times where you'll get that person who's like, blah, 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 and they explain something. You're like, oh, shit. How many times have you thought you were right at work? Dude, I thought I was right at work so many times, and somebody's like, no. And they get I had one boss who'd do that. He was awesome, by the way. His name, most of my bosses were military. They weren't current. They were ex-military. And I seem to have liked that. But this one, I'd be saying something, and Jeff, he'd be in the corner, and this dude would smoke inside, an HP, by the way, a Hewlett-Packard. He'd smoke inside, and he'd smoke like 85 cigarettes inside the office. So I don't even know how he got away with this. But when you were wrong, he'd just go, no, Jeremy. And then he'd cough and smoke would come out, and he hadn't been smoking for like 35 minutes. I'd be like, where did that smoke? Where was it inside of you? But he would, I love that kind of stuff where they just call, and I don't mean call you on it or be a jerk or a jackass. I just mean, if you've got something to point it out, point it out. If you're wrong, you're wrong.
I love your energy, man. We have so much in common. It's
Dude,
Oh.
it's the world's too short. Life's too short to not have energy, man.
This is true.
I have a lot of friends who are like, I love sleeping. And I'm like, dude, sleep to me is mini death. Man.
Yeah.
I wake up and I'm already going. What were you going to ask?
I was gonna say, like, as far as like, we were talking about utilizing the different platforms and people can try out different things: Facebook Gaming, Twitch, YouTube. Was it Parlor? I think that's another one right now.
Yeah, and then D Live was one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like you have these people, these gurus and stream coaches that are, and I've noticed that that's a thing now. I'm actually acquainted with one who she does a lot of stream coaching. There's a lot of people I know that they charge services to coach people how to be better streamers on Twitch, and it's kind of, I've heard so many different things. Like, a lot of people say it's a snake oil, like selling snake oil. I think that it is good to have some idea of what you're getting into, but I think the kind of the pipe dream a lot of people sell, and this kind of goes back to something we were talking about before we went live about people buying all this equipment because someone's like, oh, you need this, and this.
Right.
The idea to me of stream coaching, like in the sense of saying like, this is what you need to understand this platform. I think that's important. But at the same time, you can Google anything you need to know. You can Google it. I've seen people I know, they charge like $200, $300, $400 for stream coaching. I'm thinking,
what am I doing with my life?
Right?
I mean, honestly, though, that's a transaction a person's getting into, and I have less of an issue with that. I'm okay with that. I mean, and the reason why I say I'm okay with it is because I think I do my own due diligence, so I'm coming at it from a person who would never spend that money without having the knowledge of what I'm getting. I would check what the person had. I would check with others, see if they got data, But I will say this. I don't know about you, but if somebody wants your time, at some point you can't give a little bit of yourself to every single person. There has to be a time where you say, dude, I need something in return because I just can't. And I've had people in my Discord, a couple people have got really mad at me because I've like pushed them and helped them do stuff. And then I'm like, okay, you're sort of set. And this is all free. Like, it wasn't the level. It's like a $5 person. I'll be like, okay, you're set. You're good to go. We've got you. I'll give them art because I do believe in like sometimes just giving and sometimes it'll return back to you. At the worst that can happen is the person doesn't thank you. The best that can happen is that person appreciates you, and appreciation is worth more than money. Appreciation is huge, and it can help you as a channel. I don't think I have too much of an issue, but again, I don't follow that because I'll see people post that, by the way, in my Twitter, and I just have a tendency to delete it because I'll just be like, there's a lot of subtweeting that goes on. And me, if I had an issue with you, I'd be all, dude, what the fuck? Like, WTF. Like, and I've had people even go, are you mad at me? I'll be like, no, why? And they're like, well, you DM'd me, or you tweeted me directly. And I'm like, yeah, because you said something. I had a fucking question about what you said. Like, and they're all, oh, I'm accustomed to blah, 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 these 17 hand jobs and all this crazy shit other people do. Like, I don't have time for that. But I see those on Twitter. I get where you're coming from, and there probably is a snake oil, but I will say, if you are spending money, that's on you. And you need to either say, I need a refund. What do you call it? A refund, a situation here. I need to understand how I can get a refund if I'm not happy, or you need to do a service that has that built in. In the entire time I've done my helping people, one time I had a person who was unhappy, and they were like, I didn't get the help I wanted. And I personally felt that they were one of those people that they didn't want to hear what I said, which is that there wasn't any promises. They did want promises. They wanted, this will for sure work. And I was like, no, these are your 3 or 4 options. You can go this route. You can go this route, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, it just didn't work. And I refunded them right away. I was like, okay, well, then you can have a refund. That like, you'll eat those because you'll have appreciation from the people that, who do who do want to do it. And I only get like one every month, maybe, who are at that level. And usually they DM me first and we talk about it. Because a lot of times I'll just be like, dude, seriously, just look at my tweets. I give out half of my knowledge in my tweets when I'm mad in 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I don't think, I mean, I don't know, dude. Like, it's like a personal life coach. People say, listen to this, man. This pisses me off, actually. This does feed into something. Now I'm mad. See, this is the problem with me, is I get mad really fast and really quick. But this pisses me off so fucking much, and I don't understand. Hang on. I'm going to get mad. I don't understand, though, why this happens. I will get people saying, oh, man, this person's a life coach. Whatever they do, the life coach stuff, whatever they do, this person's a fucking, not a speech therapist, but a confidence therapist, or this person's helping this person, blah, blah, blah. They just need to go outside, or they just need to do this and do that. They just need to talk to a friend. And I'm like, bitch, do you understand that friend is giving you life advice? That friend is doing the same thing, and you didn't, I mean, like, at least you're seeking these people out. Maybe they do have something, but your friend, who you probably already talked to, is obviously doing jack shit. And you'll get people saying that all the time, especially I'll see it with, like, life coaches, or I saw it once with Tony Robbins, the big guy, huge dude. I actually got his personal power stuff and learned from it. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, because he says some stuff, and sometimes it requires a person who doesn't know you to tell you. You know, if your best friend says, dude, you stink, you'll be like, guess what, bitch? I do, but we're not going anywhere. You're my friend. You have to stay. And it becomes a joke. But if a girl who's hottie, she comes up to you and she's like, hey, how you do? You smell like shit. You'd probably go, fuck, I got to wash myself. That's what a personal, like, that's what those, like, a personal coach can do. They can help you. A coach, whether it be a teacher in life, they're just called a teacher, but they're still giving you coaching. Your parent, guess what they're doing? They're coaching you for when the head coach is gone, and that's when your parents are dead. Yeah. That's what a good parent is supposed to do for you. That's what a sensei in martial arts is supposed to do for you, or a coach. And I pay a coach, by the way, to go when I go boxing. I mean, well, we practice now because we're all the same level. But if not, and I wanted to learn something, I wouldn't say, you can only teach me boxing. If they said, let me help you with this, I would say, oh, maybe they know something. And so I see that a lot of times, and I do have this weird, angry reaction sometimes when I see it, where it's like, maybe that person does know something. Yeah, maybe they're screwing you, but there's a tit for tat there. You have to control yourself, because I do not believe in coddling people. If you go out there and you spend your $200 on a coach on Twitch, and you felt like you got ripped off completely, and you didn't do your due diligence, thank you. Because you just gave $200 to the economy that you obviously didn't fucking need. But you need to be smart when you're doing this stuff. People do not need to be coddled nearly as much as they are. There's a warning on everything. There's like all these like safeguards for everything. Sometimes, I don't know about you, I've failed so many times. I fucked up. I broke bones. I did stupid shit. And I can tell you, not only did I learn, but I learned to pass it on. If one of my friends, my nephew who grew up, he was about half my age, and when he grew up and he was doing some dumb shit, he would not listen to his parents. What did he listened to me, because I was not there all the time. It was a life coach situation where it was like, sometimes you need that outside person to say, dude, fix your shit. Or dude, fix your thumbnails, which I wish somebody had told me years ago. I had the shittiest thumbnails, bro. I still do. I don't know how to do thumbnails. I don't even understand the science behind thumbnails. Fuck, dude. I change my thumbnails once a week. I swear to shit. And I know I lose viewers for it, but I don't like the look, and I'm very artistically motivated. So for a while I like comic books, and then for a while I like black and white sketches, and then for a while I like fucking Japanimation, and then for a while, and so my thumbnails change. And I just changed it again last night. I did a new video and I'm like, what the fuck? Let's change that up again. I don't know. Maybe I need to find some guru who knows fucking thumbnails, but I haven't found him yet. I have shitty thumbnails, man. At least they catchy, though. I will say that. People say no matter where they are, they see, like, the corner yellow, the word review. They're like, I know that's ACG. But unfortunately, it probably also means it knows for them to not watch my shit. If they don't like it, they'll never accidentally click on it. Now that I think about it, I should make mine look like yours. You make yours look like mine. And we'll just feed off each other. That sounds like a plan, right?
Oh, man. Okay, so
Sorry, I went on a diatribe there.
No, I love it. I love the energy. Like, because there's just so much. Dude, you're dropping so many gems here. And okay, so I've had this situation with several people, several creators in my Discord that they want to do YouTube as a career, and they'll call me teach or teacher, whatever, and they'll ask me for advice, and I'll be like, okay, let me look at your content. I've looked at the content. I'm
Yeah,
like,
right.
okay, so if you're just uploading video game content, like with very minimal commentary, like a lot of people are still doing let's
Like
plays.
a let's play kind of thing. Yeah.
And part of me feels like if you're gonna do a let's play, do a stream in a way, because I don't feel like YouTube caters to let's plays anymore like it used to. And a lot of people that I know, like they're doing that, they very rarely or very seldomly talk.
Right.
And I'm like, how are people who are watching going to connect with you? If you're going to take one let's play, like say you're playing one game, you're going to divide it up into 30, 40, 50 parts. Are people really going to watch that? It's like,
Yeah.
And how are you marketing it? That's the other thing. Like I'll talk to creators in my Discord and creators I know, like, how are you marketing it? How are you putting it out there? How are you presenting yourself as a creator? Are you just going on Twitter or Instagram and just self-promoting yourself? Are you actually using social media, interacting with other people? How are you as a brand presenting yourself? And a lot of creators don't have any idea about that. And I'm like, I'm not saying I'm an expert at it. I just know how to talk to people. And it's just because of the corporate, you have to talk to people all the time. So it's like, for me, it's just, I just interact with people and occasionally I'll promote something. But, a lot of people, I think they just don't understand how this works. And they have this idea of, okay, I'm just going to make a thumbnail. I'm going to put a million different texts on it, a million different fonts, and it's all going to be completely unreadable. Or I'm going to do a series of videos, and it's going to be a let's play. And I keep telling these people, like, look, change this, change that. And they get offended. And that's my thing. It's like, why are you going to, if you're going to call me teach, and you want me to give you feedback, and I give you feedback, and you don't like what I'm saying, then don't ask me. But my thing is, whatever you're doing, how is that working for you? If it's not working for you, then fucking change it.
I think a lot of people are probably also just told, mostly positive stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not saying people don't have bad lives. They obviously do. But those people who react a certain way most likely just haven't had a lot of, critique feedback, which is rough. Because nobody. I mean, I know some people who really do like it. I like it if somebody delivers it in a way. Like, if somebody butters me up, I'll have sex. Like, if somebody comes in and they're all, dude, I loved your blah, blah, blah. Like, I love this, but I had a question about blah, 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 blah. Then I'm lubed up. I'm ready to go. I'm like, okay. Even if they're lying, and I feel like they're lying, hey, man, he took the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Blah, blah, blah. But I do think a lot of these people haven't even had that, and it's where it's like, especially, I was doing American call centers, which were really starting to get heavy into the PR rules and the HR speak, and we had some employees that, at least to me, it was simply unacceptable to have them working there. There was no reason that they should be working there. They were terrible. They were legitimately holding the entire team back, and getting somebody relieved of duty was impossible. It was starting to become impossible. And this was for a nonprofit, which I found, strangely enough, they're even harder to get somebody out of than like a commercial, which I thought commercial was pretty hard, but I guess not really, because you can always lay somebody off. But I just don't think a lot of those people had heard it, because I was in some reviews where I remember going like, this person, like, management doesn't want him here. And they were like, yeah, good job, and blah, blah, blah. Good job. Yeah. Hey, what we should do next time when we do this team meeting, you should do this, which really meant, dude, you suck and your team skills suck and nobody wants to work with you, but they would never do that. And I remember one of the first reviews I ever had, the guy came in, he's like, yeah, man, you're not very good. And he wasn't rude. He was just like, this is a review. It's not a double hand job. Like, what are we, You're the employee, I'm the employer. Of course I'm paying you. You need to respond aptly, right? And I think a lot of people just don't get that now. Like even a couple of my friends I've talked to who are younger than me, especially probably in the 18 to 25 ranks, when I start talking to them, they're more like, my life was hard. And I'm like, why hard? And they're like, I had to pay my first month's rent and my last on my own. And I'm like, bitch, I lived in a car. Like, I get where you're coming from, but is that the only thing that you're considering hard? And a lot of people will take one hard moment in their life and they'll use it in martial arts. You'll definitely hear about this, but they'll use it as a brick to stop any other hard stuff, even if it's not a big brick. So they have one bad experience that they consider horrible, and maybe even most people wouldn't, but let's be honest, all hell's a relative, so they consider it horrible. They'll put it up, and any other stuff comes in, they're like, but I'm a fighter, I'm a survivor, I did blah, blah, so what you're saying, I'll just fight through it, and a lot of times you're like, no, you really shouldn't fight through that, because, that person just told you fucked up. And I think a lot of people lack the social skills, they lack the communication skills, they lack, like social dynamic and social cues when you get people together, because it's all online now. Even like you and I texting. I've never mistaken what you've said, but texting is so weird, right? Even an emoji. What the fuck? If you smile at me, how do I know you're not going like, yeah, sure, Karak, right? Or are you? In fact, the word fuck, we used to joke about the word fuck, where you could say it 12 different ways just by inflection. Like a question, like fuck? That it's one word. It's all about the inflection of stuff, and it's lost in text. And I think a lot of people also live their life in text. Yeah. And so they don't know how to take it. They don't know how to take it when you say do this, even though they asked, man. They don't want to hear that. What they want to hear is keep on fighting, because everything in the world and in pop culture is about the fighters. And really fighting requires fairly heavy opposition. Most people want to be known as a fighter, but do not want to have opposition. And I think that's one of the biggest things, like, you take away, especially as a cancer. Like, anybody who's had cancer or a lifelong illness, there's a different. Usually, you can tell. Like, there's something a little bit different about how that person reacts to specific things.
Because it's like that one of those people and several others I've just given it. They ask me, I give them my opinion. And it's like they're always expecting people to just be positive to them. And I've seen how others interact with them. I've seen how it's just, you're doing great. Your stuff is great. And I'm over here like, no, it's not really not. And and it's like they get defensive. And it's kind of funny because this happened actually on my wife's stream. The same person ended up saying that their body ached from all the editing that they do. And my wife was kind of like, what editing do you do? And when I saw that she responded that way, I was laughing my ass off, because I'm like thinking to myself, I know a lot of people who do a lot of work, like you, several other content creators I know, my wife, myself, where like we're constantly doing something. There's a big difference between what we're doing and then someone who's just recording commentary over playing a game for a few minutes and then uploading just footage.
I'll agree with that, but I do want to point out one thing.
Go for it.
You and I we may have a different level of experience with something where to us it is not difficult. So the only reason I bring that up, because I agree with you, those kind of things can happen where somebody feels sorry for themselves, and we all do. I do. Everybody does. That's human nature. However, especially when you teach martial arts, a lot of times you'll get the repetition. You'll get something pop up and somebody's feeling sorry for themselves, and there are multiple ways you can fix it. Definitely being hard on somebody can fix it, but then you have to look at what the outcome is. Being nice to somebody, and then you have to look at what the outcome will be. And a lot of times what's happening is there's like almost like a do not understand. So for example, when I started, I didn't know editors. I'm sure you didn't. Well, maybe you did, but I didn't know any editors. So I didn't know Adobe, right? I didn't know.
I didn't either.
Right. So I felt, because your brain is focused, that can cause you to sweat. There were times when I first started, I probably wouldn't have said it. That's the difference. But there were times where I was like, oh, what the fuck? Or you hit the fucking, how many times have you hit the render button and the Premiere crashes or whatever? You're like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And there have been times even recently where I felt sorry for, I've been in here and, you know, my wife will come in and she'll be like, what's wrong? And I'm like, dude, you would not believe this. And I'll just go through my litany and she'll listen. That's about the most, you know, which can be difficult too, because sometimes they don't know when you need help, you know. And I definitely know my friends at times have been like, dude, I could have used your help at this time. And I'll be like, okay, I need to learn that, you know, their level is different than mine. So I agree with you, and there's people out there that are like that, and you're probably 100% right. But at the same time, especially teaching martial arts, you start to run into a lot of people where their verbiage is just off, and what they're really saying is, hey. For example, if anybody wants to test this, I'll give you a test. If you're not a lifetime first-person shooter, here's a test for you. There is a mouse test where you blow your screen up to full size and nukes go off. They look like nukes, but they're colored blobs go off, and you have to hit them, and it's timing you by the millisecond. And I can guarantee you, unless you're a first-person shooter and that is your normal thing, when you are done, you will actually feel weird, like almost sick to your stomach. I was doing it just recently, and I play first-person shooters all the time, but this one is like, and I have a big screen, so you have to move your mouse even farther, and you have to hit it. So your accuracy and your timing is all tracked. And of course, I want to do better, right? I see like a horrible score, and I'm like, whoa, fuck. I'm telling you, I got done, dude, and I was like, I feel like I might throw up. I was like sweaty a little bit because your brain, remember, more than a third of all your calories in your day goes to that little fucking brain. It only weighs like 2 pounds. More than a third of calories go to that. That's why in martial arts, you can have somebody do a day training, which is what we do, which is where you have somebody come in, you'll do a day training. You won't even do physical stuff. You're explaining to them, you know, the differences between moves and blah, blah, blah. They will fucking tell you that they've never slept better that night. Even if we do 8 hours of martial arts, full speed contact and drills the next. Because the brain can eat up that many calories and that much energy. So, you know, I agree with you, but I just wanted to point that out, that sometimes you will get that where, and it's hard to know, because if the person's just always complaining, sometimes you want to tell them, maybe this isn't for you too.
Yes.
Right. And then, and I try not to be negative, because maybe it isn't, but maybe something within that element is, you just, yeah, I mean, it's all different people, and everybody's going to take things differently. I just try to not care. And I tell everybody, the better you can control yourself and what you do, your editing time, all those kind of things you can control, the better. And then it'll either work or it won't. I think people also think that like hard work will always work, or they'll become a big star with one video. And those are, dynamically, sorry, I knocked my mic off. Those are dynamically opposed. They're dynamically opposed experiences. Those are the stories you hear, but guess what you don't hear? The fucking majority of the data in the center saying people are still crunching. They're not getting a ton of subscribers. They're getting a couple. And that's why it's best to go into it, like we said at the starting, go into it as a fun thing. And if your body's aching from editing, check yourself, because if it's really aching, you need to get up and move.
Yeah.
You know, that's another thing, man. The amount of unhealth, even myself, dude, I was walking around all day long as call center. People don't realize, I think they think of call center people on the phone and not moving. As a manager, I was not on the phone. I was literally always moving. And I was the operations manager. And then coming to this and not moving as much, I have to be like, okay, today is 4 hours of martial arts. Tomorrow is 2 hours of lifting weights. The day after is running. And sitting can make you sore. People do not realize that. Your body is not accustomed to having weight on all of its points. So if you're getting sore from editing, maybe check, you know, maybe walk, maybe get up, put the Wendy's burger away, and do a lap or two. Do you, wait, speaking of that, do you get to work out?
Yes.
Do you do it outside there in Hawaii, or do you go to a gym?
I was going to a gym, so I had to switch it up to working out at home. So I've got those, I think it's the Bowflex ones, but they're rotating. Like you can select the weights. So I have those. I just ordered a bench because I want to do a whole lot more, because our gyms, we just came out of our 4th or 5th lockdown, and it's like the gym will open. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get, like, I was insane about
and then it'll just close again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like my bench should be here this week, but yeah, I just work out at home. I do Ring Fit. I go for walks, go for running. I do my weights, and it's just I have to do it because I've gotten so used to it.
Right.
And I sleep better, even though I don't sleep a lot, but I sleep better. I feel better, and that's why I try to tell people, like, even something as little as just go for a walk, do something with your body.
I don't know if you have this. I'm really social, and I've been having a weird issue it's been bothering me, actually. So it's not a desire to not do those things. Working out's not an issue. It's more, so I went to PAX and I went to one of the other ones. I didn't go to E3, but I've gone to a couple events, and they didn't really work out financially, but they were fun, and maybe I'll go again. And yet I've found myself like very positive when I'm very extroverted. So when I get in a big group, that is like when my friends come over for board games, that's when I have energy for like 3 days. Like I'm the opposite of the people who get tired when people are over. I get more energetic. And I have noticed a weird thing, and I don't know if this is just, it might be the lockdown. It might be, but because there's no choice on my part, I cannot refuse to have my friends come over, which this sounds weird, but introverts love to be invited. I don't care what they say. Every introvert I've ever met loves to be invited so they can turn you down. And if you don't invite them, they won't be your friend. They'll be like, well, you didn't invite me. You'll be like, bitch, you never go. And they're like, but you still should have invited. And you're all, dude, you're such a backwards asshole. But that's the way humans are, right? Humans want to be asked and needed. They want to be able to say no because that's the cool kid. Cool kid's like, doing too many things, can't go. And you're like, what are you doing tonight, really? And they're like, making my own ice cream at home. And like, dude, you weigh 350 pounds. Do you think you'd go out and maybe fucking walk with us? But they don't. And what I'm saying is when you get, at least for me, the inability for me to go out and do these things and get in groups, that's affected me not thematically and not necessarily energy, but deeper energy. So I used to do the walking the walks. I still do them. But I've noticed to prime that pump, to get to that moment takes me longer. Yeah. And it's not burned out in games. I was like, oh, is it that I'm not interested in this technical aspect? Because I have a tendency to change what I'm interested in. I'm a learner. I take 3 master classes every single month. I love taking classes. I love going to stuff. But I was like, why am I not? It was just a little bit more difficult. Even just going to a website to find out what engine a game took, so I could start tracking that. I'm like, all right, I'll go. And I think it's the virus, man. It's like, you can't, because if you're an extrovert or an introvert, regardless, you're changed. And I would say I'm probably a bit of both. I'm an egovert, where I do like to be like, no. But then I also am the party guy, where I'm like, everybody come to my house and we'll do board game. Matter of fact, I tweeted yesterday, I don't know if you saw it, but I tweeted a bunch of pictures of board games. And I was like, I bought these 3 weeks before the virus hit. And now none are usable, which was a hit. Like looking at them was so depressing. So I don't know if that's what's happening to me, but it can happen to anybody. That is one thing, like even though I was hard on that person who said their body ached, I can tell you there's a social dynamic that has certainly changed. Seeing your wife all the time, sometimes you're like, dude, get out. Like, I don't want my wife near me all the time. And I can tell you, my wife doesn't want me near her all the time. Like, that's disgusting. I don't even want me near me all the time. Like, that's gross. So the idea of her having to be, and I'm in my fucking trunks, just got done working out, sweaty, checking an email, and I know that in the back of her head, she's like, I could probably kill him right now, like, and eat him or something. Like, you're all close to each other. You're all stuck in the same places. I'm just saying, try to get out a little bit. Like you said, go for a walk, find a spot where maybe you can get some, if you need it, get some social time. And if you're getting too tight, there is ways. It's just much harder to get away from people, but there are ways to get out and get away from people. And I think it's important, man. I think humans are not built to have this outside rule that makes no sense to us. It very much makes sense, but I'm saying it makes no sense to our brains. Our natural brain doesn't understand why every rule has changed when it comes now to social dynamics. Like everything has changed. And I think it's rough on people.
And people, a lot of people think that we're going to go back to the previous norm. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think we will.
No,
think
we
this
won't.
change
Dude, you think
everything.
so? No way, man. We're not... Okay, let's just break it down real quick. We're going for a long time. I don't want to hold you, but let's break it down real quick.
Go for it.
You have movies. Movies will never be the same. Never.
Yeah.
You will have actors. I just discussed this in the Discord. You have a lot of actors who are now really popular on Instagram and podcasts because they haven't been able to act as much. I can guarantee you a majority of those will be thinking about how to continue their careers if things slightly let up. And many will look at it and say, oh, 60 hours a week, being away from my family 9 months to film in China to do some fucking movie that may not succeed? Or am I going to Freddie Prinze Jr. this shit? Have a podcast, be married to Sarah Michelle Gellar, fucking not get out of the house, and people will still love me. A lot of people who are self-invested already, they've got a good number of Instagram, blah blah blah. I don't think those guys. I don't think we will see them as active. I truly do not. Almost like an actor who gets residuals for a TV show. They always have to make that thought, like, is it important to me? That's not going the same. Movies will never be the same because even entire systems of delivery of movies are being created right now for anti-piracy, and those will not be negated magically when they show up. Also, employees. Most of these places have laid everybody off. All those people are either within the job industry, right, and will be replaced by young people because luckily enough, people fuck every day, which means people are born every day. You just found that out. So, right? So those people will replace it. So if in 4 years it gets fixed, the 25-year-old who was selling popcorn at Regal maybe now has a different job. And so that all changes, that entire dynamic. We are in a situation that has never, ever occurred. Like most of the history teachers I've talked to, and we did have a podcast about this, have stated that it is now bigger as a world-altering event than the Great Depression because the world-altering event of the Great Depression didn't impact people that had no economy. They were in, like, somebody in Africa in a village doesn't get as impacted by us, then maybe we didn't go there for assistance or aid. But with the virus, it's there. And so the entire world has changed. Nah, man, we ain't going back, dude. Come on. It ain't. And we're going to get accustomed to this. We're going to get accustomed to you and I throwing emojis in a DM to each other. And the desire to meet up is going to go down. I play tabletop board games, the virtual tabletop on Steam all the time instead of physical. Getting my friends to come over physically might be more difficult. It costs money. It costs time. One of my friends drove 3 hours every weekend to play D&D with us. Will he want to come back? Would you? I mean, why? He doesn't love me. We ain't banging. Like, what's the positive out of that? So, no, I don't think so, man. I don't think anything's going the same. I think you're going to see a bunch of self-preservation as well as a bunch of self-success. You're going to see movie stars doing that kind of stuff. You'll see musicians continue the iTunes release, that kind of stuff. We should do a rap. Yeah. Sorry, this is me when I get energetic. I bounce, but I was just like, we should do a rap. Anyway, I'm just saying, it's great. People are probably right now is like, did he snort cocaine at some point and they freeze the frame? How did he get more energy? But this is how it goes as time goes on. But no, man, I don't think it'll be the same. I mean, Hawaii's changed, I'm sure, drastically, right? Like, yeah. I mean, have you noticed something? Because I don't know if this is true. Wouldn't things like rental cars be used less too? So, like, entire industries that were based on travel that aren't the ones we hear about, flight, luggage sales. And then those people go to different jobs because those are pared down. That's what I mean. And maybe we can come out of this educated. Maybe more people will take classes, master classes. Amazon, by the way. No, I'm not affiliated. I don't get a sponsorship, but I'm telling you right now, if you want to learn some shit, go to Amazon. They have like 24-hour or 25 class, things taught by professors. I did ancient Egypt for the Walking the Walk, which was a blast. So, yeah, I don't know, man. What's your wife gonna do? Like, let's say the virus died tomorrow. Okay, so you guys are pregnant. Let's reverse a week.
Okay.
And it went away. So she was laid off by this orthopedic place. Do you think the virus has affected her ideas of what she's going to do now?
It has. So for her, okay. So let me put this a timeline. So when she first got laid off, she's thinking, okay, so this is going to be couple weeks, I'll be
Right.
back at work. That couple weeks turned to a couple months, which has now been since March. And what she's done, because her company, they did reach out to her and say, hey, you know, we might reopen into this
okay.
month.
Yeah.
But she's already got in her head, like, I need a contingency
In
plan.
a different space.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like, she started, like I said, like, she dove headfirst into content creation on YouTube.
Good.
Podcast, streaming on Twitch. She's got a podcast she started, because I told her, whatever it is you want to do,
Damn.
start doing it
Woman's
now.
up on it, man. That's awesome. That's cool.
But-
That's awesome. That's really awesome to hear.
So, like, she like, with her YouTube channel, like, she literally kickstarted that. She's at 6,000 or 7,000 subs. Like, she's really grown on YouTube.
Jesus. That's not bad. That's
I
awesome.
think- I know, right?
Yeah, that's cool. That's better than my growth in the first couple months. I'm absolutely sure.
And you know, and I think on Twitch she's at like 1,300 followers or something like that.
Damn.
And then podcasting, like, I got her the gear. Like, I got her mic, XLR interface, and all that. And I say, here, just do your thing, and
Yeah.
she's on it. And you know, she's finally, I think she got a couple of partnerships or something. Like, she's got something with Technisport. She's got something with something, I don't know.
Not
what
to
it
sound
is.
vaguely disturbing, I need to talk to your wife. Dude, that's awesome. She's like making it work straight up. That's very cool, man.
and
very
it's
cool.
like,
And she'll be able to do that when she's pregnant too, for a long time. You know,
Yeah.
like the podcast and stuff. Like, that's not going to be affected. That's money in the bank, man.
yeah, and you know, that's the thing, is like, when we were actually talking about this yesterday. She was saying, like, you know, I don't know how I feel about going back to work. She said, because of how, she said, look at the gyms. People went back to work at the gyms.
Yeah,
boom,
right. And then boom, closed again.
you're done. And so she's just looking at alternative ways of creating income. I know, like, there was a bit of a, you know, and this is inside stuff. I'll just share it. That, like, there was a bit of tension between, you know, her parents or her mother rather, and me, because I quit my job. And so that was
Right.
a
yeah,
sense
that can
of,
be rough. Right.
you know, like, oh, you're just being lazy. You're trying.
Yeah,
to
it's
live off
understandable
her-
on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely see that. I can see that.
So like, whereas it is now, it's like, oh wait, your job, like, your position is already gone. Like, they closed down. Like, my old job has closed down a lot of different positions in IT or consolidated. So it's like, you know, when they or other people are like, oh, just go get a job, and I'm like, well, what jobs are there out here? Because Hawaii is 90% tourism. And if you go to Waikiki, I think you probably saw, I put a video up a couple weeks ago. Went to Waikiki, it's a ghost town.
Yeah.
The amount of businesses, like, literally, I think my wife and I were down in Waikiki because we go there to get. I live right next to the two biggest hiking trails, and I'm a minute and a half away from Waikiki. That's where my house is.
Damn.
And I'm literally, is another thing. I'm down. I'm 2 houses down from Hironobu Sakaguchi, who created Final Fantasy. He
Oh,
lives-
really?
Yeah, he's right down the street from me. So
You know what
it's-
else comes up, though? You just remind me of something. Who's thinking of the whores? That's the question I just asked. People are like, did he say what I think he did? I did.
Dude.
Prostitution's down.
Oh yeah, the streetwalkers. Yeah,
Streetwalkers, because the reason why this reminded me is my brother was stationed in Hawaii.
Mhm.
I was 13 at the time, so he would have been like in his 20s, and he
Mhm.
invited us over, and he took us to a street in Honolulu. Now I can't remember where exactly it was, but he was like, and I was like, hey, you know, even at that age, I was already like, hey, how you doing? And he was like, dude, like those are ladies of the night, you know. He was like, and it just dawned on me because you mentioned this. I was like, even like escorts, like, dude, it's world changing. People just don't get. And I know a lot of my friends who like to sit back and pretend that it's not going to make it's not making a huge impact. But I just don't think there's any. Even people who are doing well because of it for whatever reason, like face mask creators, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They're still probably having troubles.
We just over here. Person said prostitution's down. OnlyFans is rowing.
Yeah. I'm just telling you, who's thinking of the whores? No, it's one of my exes is one of them's they do adult movies, and then another one who was a friend is an escort.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't talked to her. No, not while I was dating them, by the way. But I haven't talked to her in 6 or 7 months. I'm still good with friends with her, and she was saying that like things had started when I first started talking to her. She was saying things were starting to get weird with a lot of like clients, having issues, and it just if everybody's being affected, my one hope that people come out of this with is a good solid psychological line of what matters. It would be really nice because I would love to, if you have an argument and both people sort of go, yeah, but you know what? We lived through this bullshit. So, a little bit of common ground. I don't think it'll happen for everybody because some people won't learn. And some people will take advantage, but at least we live in interesting times. Like, it's weird that I'll be like everybody I know who's my friend who's, going to be around after all this will be able to say we lived through it, which is not a positive, but like I said, I hope there's a little bit of common ground for some people, especially when it comes to like what matters,
Yeah.
I saw somebody bitching about it. There were two people bitching about like who had more Twitter followers. I saw this a couple days ago, two creators. They were pretty big. And, they were dropping little sub hints about each other. And I was just reading it and watching this bang, 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 and watching fans like, well, Jessica, blah, 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 is better than, whatever their names are. And I was like, wow, we're there. We're there. We're at the end of humanity. We're at the fact that these people are at home typing because they can't leave due to a killer virus. And all they care about is the number of Twitter followers somebody has. Pretty sad. That's why you got to be happy about something. We got good video games, good movies. You watched anything recently? Movie-wise? TV show? I'm a huge
TV shows. I just got into The Boys.
Good show. Really good.
I put it off for a long time. All my friends were like, you need to watch this.
Yeah.
You need to stop it. Everything you're doing and watch this. And I'm over here like, damn, I have missed out.
Yeah, that show's good. I bounce a lot of shows, and I rewatch a lot of shows too, which I know a lot of people can't do. I can rewatch them thousands of times. But I finished up a rewatch of Fringe. Did you ever see that?
Yes.
Okay, which I love. I rewatched that, and then I'm watching The Good Doctor, which sounds a little bit like if people know me, they'd be like, "That's a little interesting." It's about an autistic doctor, autistic surgeon, and the actor's just really good. And I like those kind of shows, like some person like fish out of water, duck out of water, whatever it may be, duck, fish, fish. That one's cool. Have you seen Doom Patrol or the Titans? Because I haven't seen either one of those yet.
No, I haven't. I haven't seen that yet.
Oh,
what about mixed things about them?
Umbrella Academy, season 2.
I think my wife has seen it. I haven't seen it yet.
Season 1 was so good, dude. That's the problem, right? When that second season rolls around and you're always wondering, you're like, is this gonna end up being as good or not? And it's just, wasn't very enjoyable.
Okay. One of the other things I wanted to ask you, content creator related, when it comes to working with companies, like the whole review code process.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who's looking to work with a company? Like, how should they reach out? Where should they look?
Trying to remember the old way versus now. But I would say that if you can, buy your own stuff and don't reach out until you have a couple thousand. If you do something amazing and you see a couple people tweet about it, then you can reach out. But I will honestly say cover indies. You may not want to. Indies cannot simply get covered because Steam has, I think it's 2,000 releases a month just on Steam of indies. So there is a huge, so what I call it behind the scenes is called shooting the gap, where I look at something and I'm like, okay, nobody's covering this. And usually I can't cover it, but I'll tell somebody in the Discord who wants to start a channel. I'll be like, this is what you need to do because nobody's doing it. And it won't see massive growth, but it may see employment growth. And I could certainly see employment growth. And one of the reasons why is because an indie developer, and you know this, but you're leveraging their Twitter, you're leveraging their social media contacts by covering them as well. So you may have 100 people following you. If you cover even a slightly mediocre sized Steam indie that looks pretty good, you got to make sure it's not, utter trash. You could be hinging 2, 3, 10, 15, 100,000 followers because they'll retweet you. And I would just simply say, just ask, be like, I would like to review, and always give examples. I still give examples even to this day, and I do not know if I piss off PR, but I still go and I open every single one the same way. I'll be like, query for blah, blah, blah from ACG. And they know my email. They've got it 1,000 times, but I'm like, I don't know. We're not, bro fisting. We're not brothers. We're not sisters. I don't know. And, I'll joke with them later, but in the query, when I request one, I'm very professional, and I will try to put links, if I can, of a past video, and I will always give a suggestion of what I'm going to do, which I wasn't doing for a long time. And I think is vital now, because I've missed a couple reviews that were huge by not stating, didn't know that this was required, but I wasn't really stating how I was going to cover it. Impressions / previews / reviews, that kind of thing. Walking the walk. So, or let's play. So I would say just be very clear of what you want to do and give them as much as you can, man. Make it worth it. Because remember, if their game's $20, all you have to do is know that they need to make their $20 back.
Yeah.
Now that's not too hard. Even if you warn somebody away from it, we all know those people who buy shitty games on purpose to stream. So you never know. You'll be watched. But once you're known for that, people will come to you and be like, I want this person to cover. And be honest with everything you do. And man, study. Dude, I know people who won't study, man. They won't study. They won't know about a game. They won't know about the dynamics. They won't know about difficulty curves. They won't. And it's just like, why not look it up? Those just be all, this game is fun. Even people I've helped, I've stated, you need to do, you said yourself, you're like, Let's Plays may not be the best. I agree, except one person I know who's doing stellar on Let's Plays is Fighting Cowboy, who is ex-Twitch, and he moved. And the reason why he's doing excellent is because they're not just Let's Plays, they're also build guides. So if you can do something unique, like what if you call yourself, I'm just throwing shit out, but if you call yourself the Indie Corner, and that's what you're known for, doesn't necessarily mean you'll get AAA games, but you can worry about that later. Because when you start, you are hinging on their goodwill and their social media contacts, and when you get bigger, they are hinging on yours.
Yeah.
And so to me, understanding that tit for tat is vital. And I know that just because I have, I don't even know how many subscribers I have, 500,000, just, I don't remember. But anyway, I've like over half a million.
You're at 700,000.
Did I make 700,000? I do. Yeah. I never check subscribers. So if you, even with that, I've got missed on a couple because I wasn't clear. I wasn't clear that I wanted to do a preview and instead said review, and the codes weren't coming out, or they didn't want me to get a code, which happens. Oh, and another thing, watch my video. This is the only time I'm going to pimp a video, but I did a video on Horizon Zero Dawn's code issues when it first came out on the PS4. And I said, basically, I was explaining to people because people were mad at Sony. And they were like, Karak's not getting, which that's awesome. You have fans. But I had to do an entire video, and I seem to always have to do this about Sony stuff, but I had to be like, dude, what if I don't fit with their game? I cuss a lot. Sony's an older style company, and I'm dropping sex jokes about Tori Black. Like, she's a porn star. If Sony doesn't want me there, there's nothing, what do you call it? Like black-hearted or evil about that. It's not a charity. Like, that makes no sense. Instead, you push your best foot forward. If you're known for being honest, some will dislike you, some will like you, some you'll fit perfectly, some maybe not so much. And that's pretty much, that's it. I think honesty and clarity. And by the way, if you're having an issue, just look online for how to write business emails or something. Yeah. And, you and I, when you're in call center, that's all I'm doing. So it's like, I got, and even I make mistakes. Like, people always bitch about me. They're like, do you ever QC or your tweets? Because I'll have misspellings all the time. I'm like, absolutely not. Never. Never. Like, it'll have red underlines, and I'll look at it, and I'll be like, people get the fucking gist. They know what I'm talking about. And I know that looks unprofessional, but I write outside of YouTube as well. That's one of my things to do, is I like to write. So I don't want to worry about it on Twitter. I'll worry about it in this other avenue that I'm doing. But yeah, I would say just be honest and clear, and it's not a charity. Write that on your fucking forehead backwards so when you look in the mirror you see it, because that is the biggest thing out of all this. Is it is not a charity, no matter what. And I get pissy too. I'll be like, I'll see somebody get it, and I'll, you know, be like, well, why? Because you feel, you just want to know why.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but at the same time, deep down inside, there is no expectation in life that you'll ever know why.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that too.
To add on to that, one of the other things I'd like to say is when it comes to dealing with people in the industry, like the PR people,
yeah,
you would think for outsiders, they would think, oh, it's huge, but then you'll realize it's actually very small.
You mean the group of people?
That actually, yeah, the people that oversee giving out codes and whatnot.
Very small, and sometimes
Yeah.
overburdened with 6,000 people requiring a code.
Yeah, and it's like one of the things so last year I got to go to E3 for the first time ever, and I thought I was really honored that PDP flew me out there because I am a smaller creator.
Yeah, that's cool.
I got flown out there. I got to, I got the the press pass or whatever, so I got to see a lot of stuff. My wife and I were there, and just like people who were sending me codes, indie folks, AAA folks, getting to meet them, getting that face-to-face interaction.
Yeah.
That's why every time when people say, oh, I can just watch E3, we don't need, you never need to go there. Going there and watching on YouTube, entirely different thing.
Right, and you can hinge that positively or negatively, or even to become closer with creators. It doesn't even always have to be PR. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But one of the things I've noticed is you don't want to burn bridges with PR folks because they all talk. I saw this on Twitter. I don't know if you saw this recently. I want to say it was probably last week. There was a creator who got the G.I. Joe game, and there was an embargo, and
nothing. Continue.
No. I think he got the code, and then he broke embargo. He was asked to take it down because he broke it. And then instead of talking to the guy, the PR person, he was swearing at the guy. I think you saw that.
Yeah.
You may know. Yeah. And it's that dude's done.
He is, but I will say this. I asked and was not given an answer, which I think indicates I was right. Originally, it was described as he broke embargo, and he was told to take it down. However, I looked at his Twitter, and he had got that from a store.
Oh.
How was he supposed to know the embargo? How does he even know what PR group is handling it?
Good point.
So, is it not kosher? Yes. Is there ways to check it? Yes. Is he a smaller creator? Yes. Am I backing him up? Nope. I'm just stating that what I read and what I asked about after I said, oh, they're done. And then I kept reading. I was like, wait. And I asked, and I was like, are you saying? And no one ever answered me in that entire PR group. And they were still answering everybody else. So my indication was that, and I could be wrong. My indication was that was a little bit of a piling on because somebody got it early and the PR group was like, oh shit. And they have every right to take it down early, which is what I talked about earlier when I said Polygon, IGN, myself have stated, hey, this is a street broken, blah, blah, blah. And usually the company will be like, hey, man, we don't want that out because they have the authority to basically do that right up until the very minute it's fully released. So they just won't usually. And in fact, one of my first reviews got dinged for that because it wasn't the one that I talked about earlier. It was XCOM The Bureau. So, which is a third-person shooter version of XCOM. And I got that street broke, and they claimed it against me. They didn't even ask me. It was Take Two, which I assume they don't give a shit. But I agree with you. Ignoring all that, ignoring the, probably shouldn't cuss. But on the other hand, he's probably like, who the fuck are you? How do you want? And I'm going to tell you right now, if I would know I did something wrong. And so maybe I would treat it differently. However, if somebody randomly from a company emailed me and was like, blah, 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 you know what I would do? I would probably ignore it because one of two things will happen. It'll get struck and it's not a copyright strike, that'd just be a claim. It's not going to hurt your channel. Or 2, they just leave it up, and you can always claim you're stupid.
Yeah.
You can always, when in doubt, walk out. Like, that's the way, you know, I would never respond and be like, what the fuck? You know, yeah, like you said, that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
And they're a small group, and they move a lot. They quit and work for other companies a lot. And I've had great ones, and I know a couple. I had the one person at one of the major, biggest companies ever call me a bunch of names and accidentally forward their own email to me. So, like, you know, it happens. And that was ridiculous, because they were, I mean, I don't even know, I mean, I know who they are now, but I didn't at the time. And I just asked for a code, and they were like, you know, this fat piece of shit, bitch, blah, 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 doesn't, and they were at one of the largest game makers in the world, and they said, you know, pretend you're going to give him a code, but don't. And they forwarded it without taking me off the forward, and I got to see it. So I'm like, okay, well, they're human too, you know. They can be jackasses. It happens.
And that's one of the other things. Like, I know we spoke about clicks and voice actors. There's also clicks when it comes to PR people in the video game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Sense.
Well, they trust, or, you know, they'll trust what one another says. I'm sure many of them don't get along too, though. I will say that, because there's some times where I can tell, like, just like, oh, I haven't talked to that person, and, you know, that quick response, and you'll be all, okay. So, but yeah, there's clicks everywhere. You just got to control them. If you have a positive click, that's all that matters. That's what I firmly believe. That's why, like, the people that I like, I'll contact and talk to. Everybody else, I just don't even think about them. You surround yourself with those people. At the very minimum, you're enjoying what you're doing, even if you're not getting paid. At the maximum, you're enjoying it with a bunch of friends, and you're getting paid. Like, to me, that's the only legitimately smart way to do it. And
agreed.
Like, just don't get caught up in all that shit. At least not for very long.
That's why, like, it's kind of interesting, like, when I see Twitch streamers and YouTubers talk about all this drama that they see, or
it's
whatever
weird stuff, isn't it?
I'm over here like, man, I must be okay. Obviously, I am. I'm on an island. I keep my nose out of it, because it's like, it doesn't impact me, and it goes back to what you were saying about, like, when you've dealt with real shit. All this other stuff on the internet just doesn't matter. So when I see this, they're like, oh, this happened on Twitch and Twitter, or Twitch or whatever, or whatever. The drama. I'm like, where are you looking for all this drama? Because I'm over here, like, I'm just sipping my coffee, and I'm looking at all the dumb shit that I'm seeing. I'm like, you're going out of your way to find that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see it from their standpoint, so it's hard to even know. I mean, I know where they're coming from, but I also don't even know how to track that thought process, because it's not mine, and it's pretty diametrically opposed to mine. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if this has even happened to me. Well, no, it hasn't happened to me. So here's another weird thing. I get really defensive over, like, my friends. So, like, if somebody or other people that I know, like, that I dig, I don't even care if they dig me, by the way. Like, if I respect somebody's work, that's sort of the end of it. I don't need them to, like, love me. But one time, so one thing I hate these kind of videos. I fucking hate them, man. I hate them. Whenever anybody says, like, you'll be shocked when, or, you know, has something like that in their title, the clickbaity stuff. And one day I did a video on it, and the next hour, Dreamcast Guy did a video with that title. And I know Dreamcast Guy does those titles.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going after a guy who actually plays a bunch of fucking games religiously, is good at them. Max is actually awesome at them, and you see him playing them all the time. I was talking about, like, people just doing them to make their daily money. Like, they're, you know, where you can tell it's tangential. And I got mad at that because people went after him, and I had to jump in and be like, whoa. I wasn't, like, he knows. I was like, of all the people in the world I wouldn't go after, it'd actually be him, because it's like, he's the one, you know, we've talked behind the scenes about, like, getting a code, or just, like, what he likes, what I like, issues, you know, people are having. We're not best friends or anything, but it's like, I wouldn't do that. but I think I notice side stuff more. I'll notice that. So if somebody came at me, I wouldn't even probably know. But if somebody comes at, like, I'll be on a podcast, international podcast, and I will definitely somehow, I don't know if my brain alerts, I'll root out people saying bad shit about my guests. It drives me fucking nuts. And that's when I get really mad. Is like, so like if one, like Silver has a bad, webcam, and I tease him about it all the time. It looks like he's filming from, 1800 BC, like from the bottom of a well. But then people like talk about looks or something, and I'll just be like, nah, it's not happening, like that. Yeah. And I'll get pissy about that, but I don't really notice the hot trends. I know I saw AJ and somebody having some kind of thing on Twitter, Angry Joe recently. But I don't even track that, even though I know Angry Joe. I don't track because I know he can take care of himself too. So it's just like I just don't get involved in almost any of this anymore. It never really hits my feed, and admittedly, I will do a lot of tweets and then tweet storm, as they say, and then just disappear. And most of the time, by the way, if you see me doing this, go and look, and it'll be shit to make people mad. All the time, like that one time I said, grinding games, or if you like the end game grind, blah, blah, blah. And I just went at it, pretending like I was talking to somebody else, but like anybody who likes grinding games would have taken that personally offensive. It was just a joke. It was like, I said discuss, so I hope people knew it was a joke. That was a joke. That was just me taking the piss. And I do believe all the things I said, but not towards people. It was just like, I don't like in-game grind. That was it. And yeah, those kind of things are fun. But I think the stress and the fucking like Twitter dramas maybe I'm too old. Fuck, who knows?
No, I understand. It's who's got time for that? Honestly.
Yeah.
There's so much other stuff you can do in life.
It's pretty worthless. I don't even respond back now on stuff if I'm dinged on something, or not dinged, but tweet
dragged in.
No. I just meant if somebody's put my name on something, I'll look at it real quick and scan on it. I usually don't respond unless it's like overly positive or whatever, thumbs up, like. But now with current PR and current PC situations, you can't even like something. I don't worry too much, and I'll like most things, but I know that because of the way I talk and all the jokes I drop, that at some point somebody's going to be like, I don't like Karak. Whether somebody tries to say I'm sexist or whatever, it will happen just because of how I talk, but I've sort of bought off on that. I'm like, okay, it will just happen to me. Like that'll be the thing. But usually what I don't even really even look at, like when people like say like follow Friday is a thing where people will be like, follow Friday, follow these people. It's cool to be on a list, but it's just chaff now. Yeah. Twitter's it's just all chaff. It really doesn't necessarily hit you as much unless they ding you and say, I really like your type of video or whatever, and you can tell they watched.
Yeah.
What do we have left?
We got two last questions for you, and actually, you kind of touched on it with PR and PC, because I feel like there are a lot of things, like for me, when I follow people. This is not to get political or anything, but I follow people on all spectrums. Like, just if I like a person, I like a person. And then there are things that they'll say, or things I may agree with or may not agree with. And I'm kind of like, I feel like I can't like certain things.
Yeah, right.
Or respond on them just because of the optics.
And what's weird is the optics for you are technically generally better than the optics would be for me. Because you're,
Yeah.
And I'm.
Yeah.
And that's, right?
Yeah.
And neither one of us are your wife or my wife.
Yeah.
And my wife, by the way, full Chinese, I still have had people come at me and say something. And I've just been like, wow. Just wow. I mean, like, and it's never, by the way, a person who should be offended. So it's like, what do you do? Right? What do you do? You can't win, man. You can't on some of this stuff. And I'm not saying people aren't shitballs. I'm talking about, like you said, like just liking something. I saw somebody come after somebody for liking a tweet like 8 years ago, like when Twitter was fucking one person, just when it started. It wasn't 8 years, but it was a long time ago, and they liked something, and somebody went and found it, and a lot of people were deleting their likes, because they just didn't know. And also, what if somebody turns into a shithole after you like something? And the reason why I bring that up is because one thing people need to know about PR in particular, and you were saying that there's not a big group. That's absolutely sure. I talked to one person. They're awesome, and they were doing PR, and they had 2,000 channels to vet for a game. And so that people understand what that means is that person can't just give, even to me, a code out. They have to vet them, which means they have to go and verify you are not an asshole now. So the amount of distance between last coverage and current coverage can mean something for their game. So if it's been 3 to 6 months, so for example, Activision doesn't do a lot of games all the time. So if I only hit their Call of Duties, they have to re-vet me completely and verify I haven't turned into a homicidal maniac on YouTube, because there's absolutely nothing stating I won't. So a lot of people think, oh, this person's not answering my email, and I've felt that way, but they're just, it's one person looking at an inbox that would make us all, shit ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's especially when it comes to like social media and dealing with, like, I've noticed how politicized everything has gotten.
Yeah.
And
it's pretty crazy.
It's to the point where I've actually muted certain words that have been trending or certain things that have been trending because
gotcha.
Like
use the Twitter tool for muting. That I never thought about that. Yeah.
Because it's like I don't want to see it every time I open this app.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to deal with it. And I've gotten, which is actually funny because, I'm mixed. I'm Polynesian, Black, Puerto Rican, not Puerto Rican, Dominican. I've gotten shit from certain communities when certain things have happened in the U.S. and because I didn't tweet about it, I didn't jump on it.
Yeah.
My thing is I'm a very, in a way, analytical, and I think it comes from working in IT and call centers.
Yeah.
I can't just jump on something without all the information.
Yeah, right.
And I can't just
nor should you.
Yeah, and I can't just back every single cause just because, you got to back it because of your skin color. You got to do this because of that. And I've gotten so much shit for it. And I'm over here like, I'm not going to use my outlet just for that. Like, I don't want to do that. I like to separate what I do for this versus, and people have told me that I need to, it's my responsibility to do so. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. I still have a choice. I don't want to.
Well, that's what I was talking earlier about. Individuality is only cool until you're individual in a way they don't like.
Yes.
So if somebody's saying you need to fight for the right of this or that, and you're like, what if my desire and fight for the right is even slightly different than yours? I'm going to put what I want when I want. And I've had people come at me and be like, you have a big following, you need to cover the virus. And I'm like, wait a minute, I need to? I've said it like in 40 videos. I've been like, I even did a video like, wash your damn hands, you dirty bitches. Like, I was pretty brutal about it. I was like, and you always get the flat earther in there who's like, there's no such thing as viruses, whatever. But even from people who weren't like that, I've had the thing, why didn't you do a full video where you should decry this or destroy that? And I'm like, whoa, you do realize that if I did, it would be mine, which means I probably wouldn't even 100%. I almost 100% never agree with anybody about anything that's complex. And I think my complex shit out so I can decide like what I think. And I purposely will take contrary views before I do a video and like try to fight my own view and be like, okay, that's not right. And then go back and think about it again. Because that's debate class 101, like taking on the argument of the other person. But yeah, man, it's weird when it comes to this kind of stuff because it's like I said, the individuality is only celebrated when the individuality really meets with what those people want. And since they desire that individuality anyway, and hopefully nobody's coming just because I look like a logger, just because of the color of your skin. Like, that'd be fucking shitty, right? But they like that individuality, but that's almost why they quickly turn. because they feel that there's something that's changed with that individuality. And you're like, yes, something's changed. You and I happen to agree 6 months ago, but we don't agree on this. And and that's why I always tell people also, don't just check my reviews all the time. I'll be like, dude, don't just check mine, because I'll let you down. I liked Elix. I've liked some games that just not a lot of other people liked. You know, I've been the high reviewer. I've been the lower reviewer too, where I've been like, this game sucks, and people are like, what are you talking about? It's amazing. We won't always agree, but yeah, people hold that shit against you. It's a weird time. Just watch what you're doing. If you're an influencer, I just always tell people to like make sure that whatever stand you take, you're comfortable with it. I'm very comfortable with everything I've ever said or joked about, because I know where it comes from. But especially with like liking and stuff, that's just weird now, because like you said, somebody tried to cancel you or whatever. That's not a small thing these days. If somebody really they can come at you for whatever. I'm sure somebody's going to come at me for like the, fresh face brigade, where they're like, how dare you have a beard? Beards cause COVID or whatever. He comes after me.
I mean, and it's I've even had people, I guess, you remember when there were companies are like doing the whole, like the gaming companies, especially when they were trying to do the whole. Now, I'm gonna say it because I can say it. He can't say it. I'm gonna say it. Uplifting Black voices.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when all the companies were hopping on that, and I had a lot of companies reach out to me, and I've had a lot of people say this to me, where they're like, "Well, I want to uplift your voice because you're a disenfranchised Black person," and da 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 da. And I'm like, "Wait, no, I'm not. I'm not disenfranchised."
Yeah, and that's the difficult thing, is because there's really no way around that, because if you say you're not, then they'll say, well, others are, and you have a voice, and blah, blah, blah. And so you're right back where we started the conversation. And that's why as long as you're comfortable with whatever you've covered, then you can say, and in a weird way, I think that also matters, because if you do cover something, somebody should know that means you really mean it, right?
Yeah.
You're not just doing it for whatever. So like, you don't cover a bunch of stuff. You sort of think your things through, what have you. And it's not that you don't want to have solidarity in something. It's just that you think in a different way, and you want to create things in a certain way, and which, by the way, once again, individuality. Quit celebrating if you're going to bitch at somebody who, who actually does that. But it goes back into it. And so it's sort of a no-win. It's sort of a no-win scenario. There's a political joke, which is, you can't ask the president if he thought of something, because if you have, he's thought of it. So I don't know if you've ever heard that, but one of the reasons why they don't let a lot of people around presidents and around like people to just walk around is because that's what another reason, by the way, like a Phil Spencer can't just walk into a podcast without, knowing exactly what's going to go on, or at least an idea, is because if you do ask them an open-ended cloud question like that, their very answer is like, that is damning. So like, oh, have you thought about how terrible hurricanes are? No, then you're an asshole. If you say yes, why haven't you done anything? And now you're screwed. There's literally nothing you can do from that point. And it's interesting to see that in a way we're all that now, because people are influencers and they've got people following them. People are treating them like that. So it's like, if you say, yeah, I'm thinking about it, they'll be like, oh, haven't done it yet. What do you need to think about? And what do you say? That's why I said, dude, I'm telling you, man, take my advice. Just start numbing yourself away from just over time. And I tell anybody this, just start, especially with Twitter, because lowest common denominator is there. So just like, be true to yourself and sort of, watch the things that matter, but everything else, you got to take a step back, because shit's going to get weirder before it gets better, I'm sure.
Yeah. Last question I have before we jump over to Q&A with the chat. So sports, martial arts, fitness, you're into all of it, especially UFC.
Yeah. Yep. UFC, NFL. I like Pittsburgh Steelers. They're the only ones I watch, really. And I don't even watch them anymore.
So the question I have for you is like, what got you into that? Like, since you're out, like, of course, gaming, content creating, podcasting, streaming, all that. But with all of that you have outside of it, like, how do you fit that into like your, I guess,
schedule
yourself
over.
as a person, your schedule, everything.
You mean like martial arts?
Yeah.
Because I was 4, I think. I was 4 or 6, and my parents were like, he's going to kill us. Because I was already sprinting around and doing dumb shit. I was a really fucking gnarly kid. I'm pretty sure most parents would have been like, back then, this kid's going to have an accident. Like, we need to take him out. But hobble me or something. But no, I was super energetic, and I've always liked martial arts, even like old 80s movies and stuff. So and Kung Fu Theater was a Chinese, basically Chinese movies dubbed to horrible English on USA Channel on Sundays. And I would watch it religiously. And I think my mom and dad like saw me liking that. My dad was into Kempo, which is what I got into secondarily after Goju-Ryu and prior to Jeet Kune Do and the other ones. And was just like, hey man, you want to go? And I liked class somewhat, but I didn't have a great teacher my first time around. Second time around with Kempo, I had phenomenal teachers. But my first teacher, I'm not going to say his name because I don't think he's a bad guy. I just don't think he was ready to teach. He was a little young. And just didn't work out. And after that, then it was all like-minded teachers getting together. And it was more, I was always friends with people. And so they'd be like, yeah, we'll teach you. And you'd get it for free because it was expensive back then. It's much cheaper now. These were full classical martial arts too. So they could charge you an arm and a leg. It's not like a gym class where they're like, here's $15 for an extra boxing class. We're talking Kempo. You had to sign every 6 months. You had to sign an actual payment plan. And it was $695 a month for Kempo. And it was a personal class. That's why it was so expensive. It was personal and group. And then a bunch of training. And I went for a long time, and my parents couldn't handle it financially. My mom was a middle school school secretary. So winter was fine, but summer, she didn't have a job. And at that time, they didn't have PERS, which pays you 12 months all around. So our summers were nothing, no money. Luckily, I lived in the middle of nowhere, so we had bikes and stuff. But no money, nothing. And I stopped it and then ended up jumping into it with friends and then other teachers and started doing it. Got my 3rd black belt when I was 27, 28, I think. Still practice every day. Yeah, it's a blast. And why? I mean, it's a part of me because I just, dude, my garage is just filled with like fucking water punching bags and like I just have a lot of energy and I have to bleed it off because if I don't know what would happen. Nice. And besides that, I also do D&D and I also write music. So it's like there's about 3 hours every day where I go into a comatose state like a butterfly. Unfortunately, I never get prettier when I come out of my cocoon, but I have about 3 hours. And that's no lie. Like last night, it was about 11:30, and I was like, oh, man. Well, I DM'd you at 8, and I said I'm crashing. Do you remember me saying, or I said I'm reading. Yeah. So reading turned into me sitting in bed, like reading about writing and like characterization and all this stuff. And it was like 11:30. I'm like, man, it's pretty early for a podcast for us. Jesus, we've gone a long time. But I was like, pretty early for a podcast for us. So I crashed out, and then it was like 2:30 in the morning. I was like, I'm up. And so I got up and jumped in Discord. Yeah, so all that comes together. Long story short, it's just I got a lot of energy. Okay. And my personal feeling is that I know a lot of people are like, oh, you need 8 hours. And I don't know about you. I don't know if you're that, but I have solidly always felt much worse with a ton of sleep. I've always felt better with like 5 or 6, and I can deal with much shorter, not for a ton of time, but I do need a shorter amount. And I feel much better, much clearer when I have a shorter amount than when, I get into a 7 or 8 hours sleep. I feel pretty groggy after that.
Yeah. So, Q&A section for the chat. Throw your questions in. We're at the end of the show. We're going to start winding down. So, we got a question from S_Diesel. He said, what's a show either of you initially were really into but ended up taking a huge nosedive?
By the way, I fucking dig your I'm gonna have to learn how to do that, your little pop-up there in the dude, you gotta show yeah, after well, maybe not after this because I do have to feed my dogs, but dude, please, because that's fucking sweet. A show that we initially really into. Oh yeah, dude. Oh man, have you seen 100, man?
Yes.
Bro, what is it? What's happening? on that show.
No.
So, dude, 100 is perfect for this. I am in my Discord almost every night going, I don't fucking understand what's happening in the show. So the first season, you get it. You're like, this happened, this is happening. Second season, you're like, okay, a little bit of a stretch, but this happens, this happens. Third season, you're like, wait.
Yeah.
And now I'm on the season where they're like, I don't want to ruin it for people because it's not super old, but they've moved to another place. And I'm like, what in the fuck? They just don't care. They just don't give a shit. It's like J.J. Abrams wrote every character in that show because that dude seriously doesn't care about stuff. And we were watching it, and my wife goes, we don't need to watch it anymore because I've lost interest. And I'm like, strangely enough, I have not, because it's so batshit out there that I'm just like, each episode going, who's this new bad guy? And what's this new fucking whatever? Like, it's like Star Trek if Star Trek didn't go anywhere, but the aliens came to the Earth daily, right? So, like, instead of them traveling, the aliens just once a fucking week showed up and attacked Kirk, and he had to figure out what the fuck. Dude, yeah, 100. Long story short, 100. That's mine. Do you have one?
Oh, man. Well, I was gonna say Heroes, but actually, S. Diesel, he brought it up too. The Don't Die between Heroes season 1 and 2. It was substantial.
Is that the cheerleader one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Yeah, that one. It's season 1 had a lot of potential, a lot of build up. It was going really, really good.
Right.
And then I don't know if they changed writers or what the fuck happened. It just nosedived. And so many shows, like, I even felt like Lost kind of did the same thing too. Like, after a while, like, Lost is really good, and then it kind of just petered out poorly at the end, in my opinion. Let's see, what's the other question? Citizen Sleeve says, what are your most delectable Hawaiian specific culinary dishes? Okay. All right, so there's Loco Moco, which is basically 2 scoops of either white or brown rice with a burger patty with egg on top, and then you put gravy over it. That's one of our huge. It's so good.
What in the fuck? That's like 8 different places of food all at once. Who made that? Gravy? Was not expecting you to go to gravy. That's what I'm saying.
It's so good. It's so good. Like, I absolutely love it. It's one of the biggest delicacies out here.
Interesting. What's it called?
Loco Moco.
Okay, I'll check that out. I mean, it sounds good. I like all those things, but I just wasn't expecting them to mix together.
So it's that's one of them. The other thing out here, well, technically there's they call it Hawaiian barbecue, but it's really Korean barbecue. In all essence, we have a lot of places out here. LNL, there's LNL. Oh shit, there's a lot of Uncies. Like, if you ever come out here, which I'm inviting you, you ever come out to Hawaii, you need a place to stay. I have
3 friends who live in Hawaii too, so it's not necessarily what do you call it?
Just saying, you come out here, I will take you to the good places, because I'm literally in the middle of everything. So,
and you're living near the Final Fantasy writer. We could sneak in, like, fucking show up on news the next day. Fucking 2 YouTubers snuck into fucking dude's house.
Dude, the funny thing is, like, every time I go to the store down the street from my house, I run into him. He's like, Mekel-kun, how are you? I was like,
hey, dude, you could always work that into something. Show up at his house, man. Get yourself in a game. Sorry, I have a fucking busted tooth, so I'm putting Orajel. That's not like me spreading crank on my teeth.
Nah, no worries,
Fuck,
no worries.
It hurts. When it comes to, are you more of a native eater from out there? Like, do you like that stuff, or have you, like, sort of westernized your shit? Like, are you just more of, like, burgers and stuff? Because I get this question from my wife all the time. They'll be like, dude, what Chinese food do you like? And my wife will be all, burgers. Like, have you noticed that for yourself, or?
Well, I definitely have become more westernized in a sense, because I'm from Western Samoa.
Yeah, right.
So, like, I do like Polynesian food, but I've gotten to the point now where it's like I just prefer Western style food.
Yeah.
Like, so that's just where I'm at.
It seems pretty carby too. See, so me, I do very well with really low carb, and so, like, the idea of mixing gravy and rice to me made my brain, because I get hypoglycemia pretty easily. And the idea of like blood sugar issue right there when you're like gravy, and especially with white rice, because that shit, glycemic index on that shit is crazy. And it only takes a little bit before I start getting lightheaded. I like it. I love white rice. We do white rice. I mean, not we, but I'm assuming you guys do it there. But we do white rice and butter, just like yellow butter. Just it's so basic, man. Maybe it's just because butter is so good, but fuck, I love that. I love just plain old white rice and butter.
All right, and I think we got 2 questions left, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So S Diesel has a question. Question for Karak. You a fan of any non-D&D tabletop games? I love Vampire the Masquerade. What's actually funny is I'm friends with one of the people that's part of that. That's crazy. Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah, Vampire the Masquerade is probably one of my favorites. Werewolf, the Apocalypse is probably actually my favorite. But Vampire, and then any non-D&D tabletop though. So I think he means just role playing versus board game. Fading Suns, Warhammer. Probably Fading Suns. Pretty much every one of them. I mean, that's all we do. That's literally like, I've got piles and piles of D&D games sitting here. So, yeah, I love role playing. It's one of the greatest. It's so fucking fun. And I do think that especially language skills and talking in front of others, I picked up from D&D. I don't think I would have been as social or even as successful on YouTube without having to DM like 8 people who are all asking questions and you're trying to bounce and come up with stories and stuff. Yeah, it's very cool. But yeah, I would agree. Vampire is awesome. That old system, D10 system, was fucking great. I love that kind of stuff. Did you ever do D&D? I've never heard you.
Once I did it a couple of times when I was younger. I know Luke Gygax, the son of Gary Gygax. That's one of my friends.
Oh, cool.
But I've not really dove
just
too
not
deep
for you.
into it. Yeah.
Oh,
you should have. Have you had Luke on your show?
No, it's funny you mention that, and I will talk to you after this. I'm just now getting like into the idea of trying to work some non-video game stuff into the channel. So yeah, we'll definitely talk.
Because I can connect you. Connect you to him. Brass Goalie, is it true Hawaiians like spam? Yes, and I hate spam.
No, you don't hate it.
Okay.
Dude, what? I love spam. Really? Oh, it's so good. Why? Is it the slime? Is it the clear? Is it the the jelly without being jelly that surrounds it when you suck it out of a can? You ever done that sound too? Love it. Sorry.
I've just gotten... Okay, so one time I had... Okay, so I've had food poisoning from it because someone made it really bad.
Okay.
I think it was probably old spam and I got food poisoning from it. So like I'm the type that if I ever get food poisoning from a food, I kind of just write it off.
Yep.
And that's just how I am. And my wife, she loves spam. She'll eat with everything.
Tell her thanks.
I'm just like, yeah, I can't. I just can't.
You are right about the food poisoning. I have a friend who had shrimp one time when he was young and got food poisoning from it, and he can't stand. Like, he just the idea of getting shrimp, it makes him like do the, I love it. I'm pretty impervious to all that. Ginger is the only thing that I can't stand.
Last question goes to Den Avery. He says, question for Karak. What was the best or favorite podcast episode you've done?
Well, this one now, but we'll go prior. This is always fun to I love getting together with people. I've done my podcast and jumping on theirs and like being able to talk versus or answer things versus like always trying to come up with questions and stuff is rough.
Yeah.
Man, Austin's awesome. Austin Winter. I tease him all the fucking time because that guy, what a dope with his mic. Love him, but damn. And then no, I mean, dude, I was telling you, I'm so lucky with every podcast. I would say probably it has to do with like the group we do because international podcast. This is like the 5th year as of last week. I think was the 5th year of the podcast. We haven't grown much either. I was looking at that going, I don't even know how to do those things. I don't know how to push stuff. So it's like, luckily YouTube took it off, but like the podcast, the same number of people show up every Friday and then it goes online on YouTube. The same number of people watch it, not more, not less, just the same, which I got to fix. But yeah, getting together with people 5 years in a row and having them not want to leave. Dude, we've done this podcast 5 years. And if they do, that's fine. But none of them paid or unpaid patrons have left, that we do it every single Friday. And GB actually had to leave. GB runs a channel, but he only covers Rockstar, and we cover every game. So he was uncomfortable. He was like, there's not a lot for me to talk about unless it's a Rockstar game. So yeah, that would probably be it. Probably the first one, just realizing you can talk about games and people will like it, which is weird.
Okay. Brass Goalie. Okay, so we'll this is the last one. Last one, I promise. Brass Goalie says, for both, what's the thing you hate the most the viewers doing your podcast? That's a hard one for me.
I'll say answer a question or post something without watching the entire thing. Even though it's not necessarily podcast specific, I still upload them. And this morning I uploaded a video and somebody was already arguing something 17 seconds. 17 seconds it had been posted. And he was already arguing something I discussed in the video a little bit later. I'm like, and I would say the same thing happens on podcasts. And just being rude to people, visitors, that's raw, man. Like, why? People, I've seen people talk about other people's looks. I've seen like crazy shit. I'm like, man, it's just why? Turn it off. Go do something else.
Yeah. I've had that happen too with like guests or especially when I've switched to doing live stream format podcasts where I've had people who I guess my audience may not agree with, and sometimes I've had randoms come in where they have tried to challenge them or make fun of them or stuff like that, and I'm like, we're not doing that. I shut this shit down.
Yeah, shut it down. Yeah, shut it down right away. Because that's the thing. It's your platform, technically. They watch it, but it is your platform to deliver, and you can control that. And sometimes you will have to control it. Otherwise, they will take control. Because there's far more dickheads out there than you will ever get subscribers. Even if you were 1 billion, subscribers, there's 7 billion people on the planet. So, yeah, don't let it continue.
All right. And that's all the questions. And
3 hours, 30 minutes, baby.
3 hours and 30 minutes.
And what'd you say this morning? An hour and a half. I'm good for like 7 hours, dude. I told you. And, no, it was a blast.
Did you have fun? You had fun?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's always a blast. And like I said, I like it when somebody's got their shit together. So it's very cool to have you just like, actually having those Twitter questions pop up and stuff. Very professional. I need to figure that out myself one of these days.
Dude, whenever you have time, I can definitely show you. Just let me know, and we can make it happen.
I will for sure.
Is there anything you want to leave the audience with before you go, and tell people where they can find you too?
Angry Centaur Gaming on YouTube, and let's see, go check out like Happy Console Gamer. He's a very good YouTuber. Check him out. Instead of pimping mine, like I love his stuff. Super positive guy. Citizen Sleeve is starting to stream. I think he's in this chat or has been in this chat. He's starting to stream recently, so check him out. And I don't need you. You don't need to subscribe to me. I'm too good for that. I'm just joking. Maybe subscribe. No, wait a minute. Maybe subscribe. Go check those guys out, man. There's some awesome stuff, and stay safe.
Yeah, definitely. And with that being said, guys, we're wrapping up this episode of the Kasanova Podcast. It's been a great time having an amazing guest like Eric on the show. And you'll be able to catch this. If you're probably watching it live right now on Twitch. You'll be able to catch it later on YouTube. And we also upload it on all the major podcasting outlets. If you're looking at it, I think it goes this way. So you can catch it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Pandora. We just got on Amazon Music, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome, isn't it?
Great uptick in traffic. And with that being said, links to my guests, all of Garrick's social media as well as his outlets are all linked. It's been constantly. I made sure my bot, yes, thank you, Stream Elements. I've made sure Stream Elements is showing where you can find them. So go give them a follow, go give them a sub. And I'm not asking. I'm telling you guys, it's Prime Directive. Go do it
there
right
you
now.
Go, Prime Directive.
Do it now. Do it now. So that being said, guys, if you enjoyed it, no, you did enjoy it. That's we're gonna end it with that. So yeah, have a great time. Be safe. Wash your goddamn hands.
Yeah, wash your hands, please.
And stay safe. Stay safe on the internet too. Don't get in any trouble. Don't get canceled. It's not fun.
Peace out.
Peace out. We'll catch y'all on the next one.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope it was informative, engaging, and you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure you go ahead and leave a rating and a review. It greatly helps out the podcast and helps the platforms that we're on go ahead and promote us more so that more people can check it out. And if you're wondering what all platforms we're on, aside from what you've listened to it on, we're available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, and more. And if you want to support the podcast, then we've got Patreon, so patreon.com/Mekel Kasanova, which allows us to continue doing what we're doing. If you're looking for this in video format, we're also available on twitch.tv/Mekel Kasanova, as well as youtube.com/Mekel Kasanova. So with all that being said, I'll catch you on the next episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast and the #1 podcast in the Pacific, the Kasanova Podcast. You have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.